welcome to episode 120 of the Nerds at Large Gaming Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Darby Hamill.
I'm Jeff Mayo.
And special guest,
Jacob Hamill.
Welcome back to the podcast, Jacob.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here.
It has been 3 years exactly since he's been on the podcast.
Yep.
We're really happy to have him back. We're happy that he's not dead.
No, almost.
Almost dead. I mean, he is slightly undead, but, you know, we still...
Aren't we all?
Mostly still here.
Aren't all like 20-somethings...
Aren't
like,
all millennials?
Yeah, all millennials are like partially dead, at least inside.
Damn. That's deep.
Yeah, it is deep. Jacob, how has life been treating you since you've been on here?
Life has been pretty good.
Yeah?
Pretty good. I'm loving the weather. It is a beautiful day outside.
Is absolutely beautiful. It's been a little cold, but then today is like absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. I was on a 2-week work trip, which was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work though. So I am glad to be back, but I also enjoyed my time being out of town.
Yeah. That is cool. Well, have you been able to play any video games in this time? Probably not on that work trip, but before then.
Well, I did take my Switch with me.
Okay, nice.
So I put a lot more time into the Breach, which I talked about a while ago.
Yeah.
That game continues to be amazing. If you have any passing interest in strategy games, turn-based strategy games, then I would highly, highly recommend Into the Breach.
I really, really need to try that game.
Dari, if you don't remember, it's on Game Pass for PC.
I do not remember that. That's good. Yeah. Especially since overall Fire Emblem kind of ended up being a bummer for me. Overall, across the whole experience. I need something like that.
Not enough matchmaking.
Yeah, I love it on the Switch because Into the Breach itself is a very bite-sized slice of strategy, and so it being portable on the Switch just makes it perfect for wherever you know. If you have like 20 minutes to play, it is perfect for that because missions themselves are very short, very bite-sized, but there's still a lot of strategy to the game.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah, I completely forgot about you playing that. That's one of those games I keep forgetting exists, but I know it was like a lot of people's like favorite game of that year.
Yeah, I definitely want to retroactively add that to my top 10 from last year. We definitely,
I think we want to like in some topic in the next few weeks like revisit our 2017 and 18 top 10s because like me and Jeff have both talked about like he played like Nier and I played Night in the Woods and Persona 5. Yeah,
I also had like Danganronpa
and Hat in Time.
And I played Red Dead Redemption 2, which I loved a lot.
So we should definitely we should definitely revisit this.
Also, because it's cool, we're probably gonna do a top 10 whatever game of the decade type thing. It's a cool thing to do.
Hot trendy topics that you get right here at Nerds at Large.
But we probably won't do that until, I guess you guys probably agree, after our Game of the Year things when we get through all that.
Yeah,
we do that.
I've been seeing people, because a lot of sites have been putting together a top like albums of the decade list. And oh my god, I cannot imagine like trying to put that together. That is overwhelming.
I think I can handle games.
Yeah,
I think I can handle doing games. Even that is like every time we talk about this, like I think I've like made a very quick like top of the decade list in games before, and then someone's like Darby, The Last of Us. I'm like, oh yeah, damn. Yeah. Like you just kind of forget.
Oh
like,
wait, yeah.
Skyrim is in this decade.
Yeah, I think I remember you do that, and I said, Darby, you literally forgot your top 2 games of last year.
Yep. Because you just kind of like almost filed them away in a different category. But yeah, like you said, with albums I don't even want to attempt.
Like how could you not have a list of like 500 different albums for 10 years? Like
for a lot,
and you would still be forgetting a lot of great ones.
Top 10 might be pretty easy because I've made lists kind of hastily. I only thought of it to myself last year, so it'd be easy to just take the top couple, remember, for each year for me, potentially. I'm bound to forget something and just compile the list of that.
Yeah, you're more prepared for it. Me, like, I would make my top 10 and then people would bring up albums that would be like, oh shit, that one, then my top 10 would completely change. That would like almost end up cycling everything up. Yeah. It would be rough. Well, Jacob, I guess take your pick. What have you been playing? I know you've played Afterparty. You've played Control. What? Pick your poison.
Okay. Well, we can continue the strategy game talk because I did pick up and play a few games of Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition.
Yeah. Which you are a huge Age of Empires fan. Right?
Yeah, that game. that's one of the few games that I would say really shaped me as a person. Because I remember my dad had Age of Empires 1 on the PC way back in the day. And I remember kind of picking that up when I was like 8 or 9. I didn't even know how that game worked. But it really, that series, and especially the second one, really kindled in me an interest in history and the past, the human experience. And, and that continued into what I studied in college and what I do now for a job. So it's Age of Empires 2 is a very impactful game in my life. And so it's wonderful to see it got a HD port back in 2013, and a ton of great expansions were added to it. And it's really awesome to see it now in this definitive edition, this HD revamping, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. It from what I can tell, and I can't, I was never really into the multiplayer part of Age of Empires, so I can't give you like balance changes or any like that really nerdy numbers stuff. I can never tell you, oh, how many villagers should this civilization have by the 5-minute mark? I was never that deep into it,
right? But
I still enjoyed playing it a lot. And in this definitive edition seems like the perfect version of Age of Empires, especially just visually how it looks. It is absolutely gorgeous. Mm-hmm. I was always really fond of the way Age of Empires 2 looked, the sprites, the art style of it, and I think this really captures that same look to it, but updates it, fleshes it out even more, makes it even more pretty. I
feel like they could have just like completely modernized it to a point that would be kind of a bummer almost, like it would be, it'd be like, okay, well it looks completely different. Like it looks good, but it doesn't really look like it did. With this, I feel like it still looks like kind of retro, like sprite like or whatever, but the colors are just so like vibrant and like, I don't know. I adore that the definitive edition.
Yeah, and like even style. Like zooming in on the units and stuff. I can't tell if it's sprites or if it's 3D models. I'm not exactly sure, but it looks really, really nice.
When was the last time you had played Age of Empires 2?
Oh, I mean, I pick it up and play the HD version every now and then.
Yeah.
So
did this give you the warm nostalgia feelings?
Oh, absolutely.
Fuzzies.
The fuzzies.
And I think they remastered all the music too. The music in Age of Empires 2 is really, really great.
Okay. I should listen to that when I'm on my computer. I'm always looking for new
it's
soundtracks.
Great. It really invokes the idea of, building your empire, exploring, fighting battles. It's a very kind of epic sort of soundtrack, but not in the way that like, I don't know, this, a grand kind of historical movie might be, it's not like the Braveheart soundtrack or anything like that, where it's like kind of this overdone kind of symphonic sound to it. It's very, I don't know, it feels very of the time of the late 90s, but it fits the theme.
Yeah. So is the combat, the gameplay and everything, is it pretty much an identical like port up, or have they changed things?
There are a few features added. I've only played a few. Games, so I can't really tell you the difference. But you can also there's a ton of settings in the menu that you can tweak. There's added added streaming features. I think the multiplayer has been revamped.
Nice.
Some of the menus and the UI has been updated in a nice way. And I think they added also a few new civilizations as well.
Okay, cool.
So I think there's 4 new civilizations, and there might be new campaigns, but I have not dived into the campaign section yet, so I can't tell you that for sure.
Yep, this feels like a game that kind of like Civ, that I could fall into the trap of like, oh, I'll just play a little bit more. I'll just play a little bit more until it's like 2 a.m.
Yeah, games themselves, I think, they're very relaxing to me in the way that they build over time, because it is a real-time strategy game. So you start out, you have your town center and you have your villagers. You're like, okay, I'm gathering berries or I'm hunting deer, and now I'm going to build a barracks. I'm going to train a few, infantry guys. And then you progress, and now you're like managing like 30 different farms. You're managing like 5 different gold mines around the map. You're building an army. You're like building towers to kind of tower creep on an enemy, and so on. You're constantly making upgrades and buying technology to like, I don't know, boost the power of your walls or boost the attack power of your infantry and so on.
Yeah.
So it becomes, you're in the beginning you're focusing on maybe like 1 or 2 or 3 different things, and then by the end you're focusing on like 30 different.
Yeah.
You're cutting back and forth to 30 different parts.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if it's unfounded, but it feels like it would scratch like a Civ type itch for me. But
I definitely think so.
Does it feel like grueling like a lot of those older strategy games do? Like, is it something that I could jump in and understand?
Okay, so I'm probably not the right person because I've been playing these games since I was a child. So the language is kind of intuitive to me.
Right.
But I think compared to other real-time strategy games that I tried to dive into, I think it is very approachable, very easy to get into. And the combat itself, the battles, it's very rock, paper, scissors. And I think it's very easy to keep track of. A lot of civilizations share similar units. And so it's very easy to kind of keep track of what counters what. And micromanaging, I think, is very approachable compared to like some other RTSs.
Yeah, 100%. Well, yeah, that's awesome. What's your like hype level, interest level in Age of Empires 4?
I'm really interested. So I think it was fascinating to see that they're kind of keeping with that historical theme. So I think back in the day, Age of Empires 1 is based on antiquity. Age of Empires 2 is of course set in the Middle Ages. Age of Empires 3 goes from like the Renaissance through the age of exploration into like the industrial age, or the very beginnings of it. And so people kind of assume that Age of Empires 4 would probably start at like the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution and probably go into like, I don't know, World War II. It just seemed kind of like a natural step.
Cool, yeah.
But it doesn't look like Age of Empires 4 is going to do that. And I think that is the right choice. Because there's already a ton of real-time strategy games that are based on World War II. And
just games in general.
Yeah.
It's just media in general.
It's a very played out setting. So I think it's cool that they're probably going to go back to a more, an earlier historical setting.
Yeah. I think it is cool that you're getting such an awesome, treatment to Age of Empires 2, but also getting a new one at the same time is kind of cool.
And now Microsoft's got a studio that's dedicated to Age of Empires. That's its sole purpose.
Yep, they have a name now.
Yeah. What I am very interested in seeing is if it's going to continue any of the changes the studio brought in during Age of Empires 3. Because Age of Empires 3 is not a bad game, but to me, and I think to a lot of other fans of the series, it incorporated ideas that maybe did not really work all that well. They kind of, without going really into the details, there were features in Age of Empires 3 that I think that discouraged, trying out different factions, different civilizations. And they also kind of encouraged you to. It gave people who played the game a lot an unfair advantage.
Gotcha.
In games, because pretty much there was this whole, because it's the age of exploration, right? So it's set in the new world, and you have like a home city that levels up, kind of like a character, or it kind of levels up as you win more games, right?
Yeah.
And so you unlock, you can like quote unquote export, units and special abilities, which if you play the game a lot, you would have better, higher tier abilities, which would have been, I think, unfair to new players because they would not have had those skills unlocked.
Okay, gotcha.
That can like boil that down very quickly.
Yeah, so it was less approachable, or it was more like the veterans just kind of could.
Yeah, it had some interesting ideas, but they were just not well executed, and I think that kind of killed a lot of interest. I mean, there's a reason why Age of Empires 2 is the most popular one of these games, and not the third one.
So they're doing that instead of 3, and just jumping straight ahead. Yeah, that's cool though. I'm very interested, especially Game Pass. That's a perfect game for Game Pass for me to try out.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Because like real-time strategy games, they don't really make a lot of those anymore.
No, and that is also awesome that now like Xbox has a studio that they're like, you go for it.
Yeah.
Make these games. And that is a cool thing for, like you said, modern times. having a studio from a major platform that's dedicated to making RTS games is not.
Yeah, and there's
not
tons.
uncommon.
There's tons of people my age and younger that have never played an RTS.
Yeah, I played very, very few of them.
Yeah.
So.
And so it being on Game Pass, I think, is a great way to kind of wet people's toes into this genre.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Jeff, you want to give Jacob a break and tell us a little bit about Pokemon Shield, because you have played a considerable amount more than we talked last.
Yeah, I want to say between the Nuzlocke, whatever we've done with that, and my own playthrough, probably played close to 40 hours of the game.
Oh, wow.
Damn. That's a lot of Pokemon.
Somewhere between 35 and 40, something like that.
And how long has the game been out?
9 days.
Let's do the math.
So yeah, where to begin? So where I'm at in my personal playthrough, is I got all 8 badges. I'm at the Champions Cup. I went through all that. I'm about to fight the champion, and then Mr. Obvious Not a Bad Guy was like, "Yo, I'm gonna bring about the darkest day." What up?
Oh, wow. He was a bad guy.
The whole time.
Jeff, spoilers.
Man. Yeah, I'm probably gonna spoil some things about a Pokemon story.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I'll start with the story though, and go through some things I like, dislike, all that kind of stuff. So for the story, the main focus of the game, which I kind of like, is about the gym challenge, which Darby's gotten a taste of with our Nuzlocke, where you're going through it, and it's pretty much like a rite of passage type thing, or a bunch of kids are going around the gym and going through it together, pretty much collecting the badges to go to pretty much be eligible to compete in this tournament, and the winner fights the champion. And what I like about it is they're pretty to be like, this is why you're doing it in this order. This is the way it is. You're going from the weakest to the strongest, and that's just the way it is. And as you go on, you hear little stuff like, man, there are less and less people here. And one of the early gyms, like, this is usually where a lot of people stop because they can't beat them.
That's like cool little world building things. It's not just, yep, you go here and then you go here or whatever. It's like, there's a bunch of other kids also doing this. And yeah, Milo, the first gym leader, was like, yeah, I have a very busy schedule basically because this is the first gym that people come to. You know, like, it's very simple little things, but that is cool in comparison.
Yeah, and I kind of like what a lot of the times in other Pokemon games, it feels like gyms are just kind of there. And even the bad guy stuff just kind of happen. And that is the way it kind of is in this game. Honestly, for the evil plot stuff, you get little taste of the lore and stuff throughout the story, but the bad guy stuff never really happens till literally the end. It's like, okay, whatever. To read really, I don't care about it. But I like how the gym challenge stuff, this seems to be more of a focus on it, and it is more part of the world just because everyone's talking about the gym challenge stuff. People are like, I'm cheering for so-and-so when you kind of talk to the NPCs and all that. And just when you go and when you find the gym leaders in your stadium with people cheering and all that, it's like, add some stuff to it. And throughout this, you get your little rivals. You got Hop, you got Marnie, you got Bede.
Hop sucks.
He does suck.
He's a dork.
He is a dork. But strangely enough, in a way, and whenever I say stuff about the story, I want to say, this story's not great. It's not really good. It's the most basic ass JRPG thing ever, like about every other Pokemon game besides Black and White.
Yeah, like nothing was not much was improved with this one. If it was improved, it was very minor.
The thing that's improved the most is the presentation. But even then, a lot of it is like, this is good for a Pokemon game. This isn't good by other JRPG / games today standards. I want to make that clear. There are a lot of things that this is not caught up to modern gaming, but damn, am I have fun with this game. This is kind of the way it is.
Yeah.
But
does that bother you? Like, how much does that affect your experience?
This isn't, and while I would say this is not really just a Pokemon thing for me. It's just I'm usually more of the optimistic side, as Darby can attest to where I don't try to focus a lot on a lot of games where what's not there or whatever. Just kind of, am I having fun with this and what's here?
Right.
A lot of the times. So, and I've said on this podcast multiple times, Pokemon as a franchise, as much as I love it, it has the biggest wasted potential of like any gaming franchise. Like, I can't think of anyone that comes close.
Yeah, considering the amount of money and how
the amount of money
popular they
get in that could be put into it and everything.
It's like when you talk about a franchise like hampered by its own success, Pokemon is like the absolute poster child for that.
And there are a lot of things like, honestly, I feel like a lot of people that are like our age who have problems with Pokemon games, the main thing is the two things that would make this game improve a lot to people like me and people that are like our age or older that are playing Pokemon nowadays. They didn't try to make this the most basic ass kids like shonen story ever, where you have a silent protagonist and all that, and everyone's like, you're the best and all that. Take that out. Actually try to write a good story. More people would be okay with it. And let's be honest, kids would be okay with that too. Kids will suck anything up. Just the fact that it's Pokemon. You don't need to dumb it down for the kids.
Yeah, and I think we don't give kids enough credit to kids can do have some semblance of quality when it comes to
I
stories.
played Majora's Mask as a kid, damn it.
But also just with complicated stories, somehow kids like me enjoyed the Star Wars prequels, even though the story is absolutely ridiculous and filled with like Trade Federation nonsense. Like, yeah, kids can enjoy something that's not just basic, is by the books and simple.
Another thing that would make people, I think, our age more happy with these games is some technical stuff, like make this graphically more like modern games and not more of an up-res 3DS game. This game could not be on the 3DS in a lot of ways. I think people kind of are hyperbolic about how bad this game might look. Not the best looking game. It's not technically the best game by far.
Right.
It at least runs well, like some other games like Dory might talk about next.
This is very true.
But fix that, people would be fine. Also, just the world design. The towns in this game are fantastic. Potentially the best the series has ever had. Especially considering just how much better it looks than the other games. But the routes and even the wild area, which I love in concept, just big open field, all these Pokemon or whatever. The wild area is basic. The main thing that changes is the weather randomly. And the routes, a lot of them are straight lines or very little branching paths. There is one route that was late in the game. It's like, yes, this is what I wanted, because it was a big area with a bunch of different paths that you had to explore to find all the items and the trainers and stuff. More of this. Do more of that. I feel everyone will be happy. The kids will be happy no matter what. All they need to see is Pikachu and Yamper and all that to be happy. And the thing is, we'll get to the sales in the news. Well, people like me, we still buy it. We still have complaints. We still buy it. And generally, we're happy about the game. There's all this hoopla on the internet, but that is a very vocal minority. Once the game came out, I saw a lot of positive things. Even people have problems with it, but it's always like, I'm still loving the game and having a great time with it.
Yeah.
And all that. To get into more of some of the other stuff, the stories could be a whole lot better. Surprisingly, Hop in a way might be the best rival in a way. People are saying he's like the absolute worst. I'm like, do you guys remember the other rivals? He actually at least has a character arc. It's the most basic ass thing ever, but it's actually an arc.
Yeah.
Compared to everyone else, like, we're best friends or we're rivals and I hate you. Why do you keep on beating me? And that's all.
For no good reason.
Yeah.
Oh, they're supposed to be intimidating, even though you just crush them into the ground.
Yeah.
Every time.
He at least has a basic character arc, which is more than say about other rivals. Yeah, I thought about.
I was mostly joking. I mean, like, he's kind of supposed to be like slightly obnoxious, but he's not.
But the new Pokemon in this game, now that I've seen them all and used a lot of them, very strong across the board. Maybe the best in the last couple gens for sure. I've got about 12 Pokemon and 2 teams worth of them switching in and out. And I'm loving them. And there's even some that we're using in the Nuzlocke that we've already caught. I'm surely more than I really like as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've enjoyed all the designs. Obviously, I don't have a vast knowledge of Pokemon to compare it to, but there's been multiple times I'm like, oh, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah. And yeah, let's get to the battling and all that. As far as like the difficulty and all that kind of stuff, could definitely be harder. I think Pokemon could benefit, and this is a very simple thing. A difficulty setting. Just have that. Yeah. Just do it. But in a way, and I've seen a lot of people disagree with me, and I think I know why it's that case, which is kind of a JRPG thing anyway. Is the difficult thing. I think it's the hardest games in a while for Pokemon. Yeah. But to be fair, I am switching people in and out. I'm not really having to do any grinding or anything on my file, at least not up to this point with the big level jump. But thank goodness for the EXP share. That's one of my favorite features. I mean, it was in the previous games, but something I'm glad it's in here.
Just a time saver.
Yeah, it's a time saver more than anything. But these gym leaders especially, and even some of the trainers that you just find in the areas, more of them than I feel like in past games have actually good Pokemon with interesting movesets that could surprise you. So like when Darby and I do our Nuzlocke, I'm going to be scared because there's no way in the world I'm going to remember what all these things have, and that'll just make it more interesting. Like I was like, oh, this guy's ground type. Okay, let's throw out a water Pokemon. Oh shit, it knows an electric move. Well, RIP. That kind of thing. And gym leaders have stronger Pokemon. A lot of the times, gym leaders may not have fully evolved Pokemon until in-game. I believe the third gym is when they start having fully evolved Pokemon. The gym leaders do. So they got strong Pokemon. They're doing more interesting ideas. Like the last gym in particular, I was like, well, this is actually a pretty interesting gym. That's going to be scary when we get around to it in the Nuzlocke for sure.
So it's going to be a whole different experience.
Yeah. And not to say it wasn't just kind of easy, but I was actually losing Pokemon and all that, but I was under level just because I wasn't grinding at all, but not in a way like I was really under level or anything. It's just added to the challenge of it. I think people are saying this game is just easy, or everyone's like, I'm just using the same group of Pokemon and just going through things, might be battling even wild Pokemon on the way and just vastly over leveled, which could be, a good argument against that. It's like, well, Game Freak could have balanced the game better, and I agree they could have.
Yeah.
But it just depends the way you play. But even the last gym leader and stuff did a lot more actual, like, no, these are kind of competitive strategies. It's kind of a more basic version of it, but these are stuff, the kind of things competitive people will actually use and all that. It's very interesting. And final thing I'll just talk about is I finally did raid battles.
No, yeah. You had not done that when we...
I have not done that. I did a good bit of that last night and this morning on my file, which is in-game stuff, and then in the Nuzlocke file, which is after one badge, which is a good way to compare things.
Yeah. So what was the raid battle again?
Raid battle things, they're these little rock things that usually have a pillar of light coming out of it that if you interact with, you can battle a Dynamax Pokemon. A giant version of a Pokemon with 3 other people. And for people who don't feel like connecting to the internet and actually dealing with real people, you can just pick to not get anyone else and get 3 computers in there. But they suck, usually. They just throw out any random Pokemon and do whatever move they want, no matter what the typing and all that. But it's fine for this purpose. The early level ones I did in the Nuzlocke, they were really easy. They're lower level, not usually first stage Pokemon. I couldn't one shot all of them, but it didn't take that long. I didn't really have to worry about it. And you get a bunch of rewards for doing these things, like candies that give experience to Pokemon.
But
you get items that you can sell for money. Sometimes rare candies, which increase the level of a Pokemon just straight up. And you get TRs, which are like TNs, but they can only be used once and teach Pokemon one stronger move.
Yeah.
So those are interesting rewards and something that competitive people are going to have to do to get these the moves that they're going to want to use for competitive. That's where a lot of the good moves are.
So how do you feel about the raid battles as just a feature in this? Do you want it to continue in future ones, or do you think it was a fun thing to do one time? Or
yeah. So let's do it. And I'm going to just include the wild era in what I'm about to say.
Just the new stuff.
Yeah, the raids and the water. I want them to improve on it, because it seems like these were kind of experiments in a way. Them to just test this stuff out and see how it goes, and hopefully expand on it in the future.
Yeah.
I like them both in concept, and I do like the way they're done in here, but there is big room for improvement on this stuff.
Yeah.
And I am hoping that they do keep this stuff and just improve on it, because Game Freak is notorious for introducing new features that people really like, or like enjoying, like this could be better, and then just removing it.
Yeah.
Never to be seen again. Like, why do you do this? This is the reason people complain about the lack of features and stuff, because you add stuff and then just take it away and stuff. If they added all the features that make sense to be together in a Pokemon game, it'd have a lot of content.
It feels like every time Pokemon games come out, we just like kind of see that Game Freak they have not made their studio big enough, and they don't give themselves enough time, because and you're really seeing that this time, because they weren't able to include all the Pokemon that people wanted to include, and there was just things missing. It just kind of seems like every Pokemon needs a little bit more time in the oven, and then it could like actually be great instead of just good and fun.
Yeah. Which Dari and I have debated this a lot off camera, but the main reason of that is just Pokemon's a well-oiled machine, blah blah blah. They got to keep things together pretty much, as far as the games coming out at the same time. The new anime starting, which I think might be happen this weekend. But do I wish they would not do that and get a better game? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I understand why they're doing it from a money-making perspective? Yes.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is just that Game Freak makes very simple games for not much money, and they sell insanely well. So
we'll get to.
They financially have no incentive to make it better, which sucks. I mean, maybe eventually there'll be pressure on them, but for now, I mean, like, Game Freak has the ability, if they wanted to just blow this up and make the Breath of the Wild make a big change. We're gonna skip. You would normally have a Pokemon game this year. You're not gonna get it for another 2 years, and it's going to be a crazy big thing. Like, they could do that. Well, they could beef up their team. Like the anime or whatever, they could separate from that. Like it's not like God is coming in here and saying that Pokemon has to be this way. They could if they wanted to. They have no financial reason to. I'm just interested to see if eventually we get to a point where they do feel like they need to. And like, I feel like it's a bummer, because like Let's Go could have been that, like a side thing. You could have had your normal Pokemons that come out every 2 years or whatever it is, and they're how they are, not that much different. But then you have the side thing where it's like, we're gonna give the studio 5 years to go make this cool Pokemon game that's very different. But instead, Let's Go kind of seems like it leans even harder into the casual aspect of Pokemon.
And it underperformed despite selling 11 million or whatever it sold. So, and they're kind of saying that they may not do a follow-up in the Let's Go series. So, yeah. But if you want me to freak out, let's say whenever they announce the next gen of Pokemon, they're announcing it, they're talking and helping us with the world design and all that is Monolith Soft. I would freak the fuck out. Because that's somewhat of a realistic thing, as far as if they really wanted to, because Monolith is known for helping Nintendo Studios out with a bunch of things. I know Game Freak's not a Nintendo studio, but they could do it if they want to.
Seems like a good pairing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I already did Zelda. They were a big part of what made Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, and you just look at the Xenoblade games, and kind of the same thing. You got all these monsters out in this open world, just going around in all these crazy, awesome environments. And kind of people keep on comparing the Wild Earth to Xenoblade in the basic way of, oh, you go in here, here's a high-level monster just walking around that you'll come back to fight later.
So Monolith Soft is quietly, secretly one of the best developers of the decade, right?
Monolith Soft is the
sounds like it.
Xenoblade's are good, but secretly Monolith Soft is one of the best purchases Nintendo's ever made when they bought that studio.
Yeah, 100%.
So I have a question about Pokemon, Jeff.
Yes.
As someone such as myself who, I was into Pokemon when I was a kid, but I did not keep up with it. I don't really have a ton of nostalgia for Pokemon. And Darby, are you kind of on the same page as me?
Probably less than that. I was never really into it even as a kid. Like everyone else was, but I didn't.
Most he did was play like Pokemon Stadium with me.
Right.
Yeah, I was like at Jeff's house when he was playing, but like I never myself played the Pokemon game, so I'm even less than that.
So who would get like the most enjoyment out of Sword and Shield? Would it be someone like us who doesn't really have much familiarity with the games or like the new games, or would it be someone who has been keeping up with the Pokemon series, who's really into it and can appreciate maybe the changes going from, the last game to this game?
Good question. The thing is, my answer, and I know this is maybe a cop-out, it just really depends on the person.
Right.
Because even Pokemon long time fans, there are people like me who are enjoying this, and then you have the people freaking out on the internet over everything.
And then you have reasonable people who are like, I'm kind of done doing the same game over and over.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, but peace.
No, yeah. And even on the flip side, when I see people that are new to Pokemon that or haven't played in a long time who are liking this game, is just like, it's just a nice, enjoyable thing or whatever. And maybe even people like you who played it when you were really young. It's been a while. Like, this is like a nice kind of nostalgia trip, because even for like you, it's not as overwhelming as it is, but there are a lot of Gen 1 Pokemon, so you could go in the wild area and be like, I remember that Pokemon, and just go and catch it and all that and see all these new creatures. You could have a fun time, and like also in your situation, like with Celeste, you guys could play together and have a good time. Just a nice, jolly time. But there are also people who haven't played it go in, it's like, man, this game is just really behind on a lot of things compared to other games. So it just really depends.
Yeah.
Not on one thing. It's Game Freak, the Pokemon, like a lot of other franchises we associate with Nintendo, are kind of just for everyone. It's just that the Pokemon fan base in particular is so fragmented. Like, it's so big. There's so many different parts of it that want different things and are just different levels of happy with what we're getting.
And I think you see that, like, anytime a fan base gets this big, you see that, like, Star Wars is the other like equivalent example, I think, where like I'll see, like, I didn't like The Last Jedi, and I know a lot of other people who didn't like The Last Jedi, and I look at what they didn't like, and I'm like, no, I like all those things.
Right.
It was these things I didn't like. I remember I listened to people, and it's like me and them completely disagree on the aspects of the movie, but we both don't like it. So, you get that a lot. I think also with Pokemon.
Yeah, it's a very interesting, I guess, perspective for a series like Pokemon, which is so big, so you get all those differing opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, maybe it's just because on Twitter, maybe it's just because there are almost everyone is a Pokemon fan and people are just excited about Pokemon, but I don't see very many people online that are like, hey, this is my first Pokemon game, really enjoying this. Obviously there has to be a lot of those, but I just don't see those. Most people I see have been Pokemon fans, and this is
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just in our gaming sphere. There's a lot of people we follow on Twitter. There's a lot of them has at least been introduced to Pokemon. Yeah. Even if they don't have they haven't played every game, they probably at least played one or two.
Yeah.
Or at least tried them.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like the same thing with Star Wars. Practically everybody has seen Star Wars except for Jeff.
Well, it's also one of those things that, like, I could jump into Pokemon and I'm going to recognize a lot of Pokemon even though I haven't played them before. Jeff could jump in the middle of a Star Wars movie and he's going to understand a lot of things going on. It's just culture.
Honestly, if it's just going to Star Wars real quick, I was actually debating, like, maybe for the movie, just for the hell of it, just watching all the movies.
I told you we should do that like weeks ago.
Yeah, I just kind of thought about it.
And I was gonna do my Star Wars rewatch thing or whatever. So I watched The Phantom Menace yesterday. God damn, that movie's terrible. And but like, I don't know. I've kind of figured out, like, I don't know if I have enough time to do like a video for every single movie. But
yeah, it was part of my process for that. It's like, well, I'm not gonna get a lot of it because I know pretty much all the major twists and everything. They're not gonna have the impact, and then it's just a thing of. There's
still fun movies though. You can at least watch the original trilogy and then like watch Rogue One because it's good.
Yeah, I was like, man, there's a good bit of the fan base that just really dislikes, that hates like half of the movies.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get a little bit more talk from Jeff once he finally finishes it for good, but he's almost there, so that was probably.
I can't imagine I'm gonna have much more to talk about other than
probably very little more. But.
Yeah, just how the end game thing was and how once we're further in the Nuzlocke, how this game is as a Nuzlocke.
Well, speaking of games that have problems but are kind of fun despite that, I played a little bit more of Jedi Fallen Order. And, not nearly as much more as like Jeff has played as Pokemon, so I'm probably going to have a lot more to talk about the next week or so, just because I'm slower. But I'm definitely really enjoying this game. It's a fun game to play. Just when you're in there, the like sound design, the way the enemies look, and just like swinging the lightsaber, like it feels like a very Star Wars. Like it's like the most like immersive a Star Wars game has been, because you had like the Battlefront games, but it really was like a Battlefield skin, and it's like, you know, I'm kind of in this random battlefield that doesn't really have anything to do. There's no like story that you're going through. It just didn't feel like exactly what you wanted out of a Star Wars video game. This scratches a lot more of those itches, obviously, and it feels nice to have a Star Wars game that is this fun to play. The game is kind of held together by a shoelace. This game has a lot of glitches and just like stuff. Like I find it. I can't imagine that anyone could play this game without running into something.
That's pretty shocking because it is an EA game.
Yeah. I think it's pretty abundantly clear that this game needed more time, but they wanted to get it out for the movie.
I was actually about to say,
I think that's
Jacob,
very clear.
I agree with your general sentiment, but I think it's also partly because it's an EA game and Star Wars in particular of why it's maybe that way. Because like Darby said, they wanted to probably put it out before the movie came out. So,
to be fair, this was the best possible time for this game to release.
Yeah.
I mean, like they could not have had a better time with The Mandalorian, Disney Plus, the movie coming out. This was the time financially it made the most sense. I think it's a culmination of that, and EA's financials have been down for so long now. I think they needed a big win like this, especially with Star Wars. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's the right option, because this game could have been truly like it could have there would at least be a lot less complaints and stuff if it had had some more time.
Based on what I've seen, just generally speaking, obviously people would have other potential problems with it, but it sounds like if it wasn't a like technical mess where it had all these glitches and stuff, there wouldn't be any general complaints. There'll be people like have little nitpicks or complaints about certain things, but there wouldn't be this big thing everyone talking about the glitches, because everyone seems to enjoy the combat as well as the story from what I've heard.
Yeah. I mean, the other big like complaint, it's kind of a complaint, but it's kind of not. It just depends on what you're going into it with. This game, as I kind of said last week, and I felt even more in the hours that I've played since then, it is absolutely a jack of all trades, master of none. Like, even if you take the technical stuff out of it.
That's what I've heard too.
It's like an amalgamation of a bunch of different games, like Uncharted, Souls, Metroidvania, and like definitely even some like Assassin's Creed or some open world games, because the map, like exploring the map, you have this.
But those first three we said in particular,
those are the main three. The main three
that are obvious.
So like it's kind of it's unique in the sense that like I've never done all those things in one game before, but none of the individual parts of this game is doing anything new. Which again, like that is definitely a complaint, but also at the same time, it is fun. Like those are inherently fun things, like getting abilities and being like, oh hey, now I remember when I was trying to do this thing back there, now it makes sense, now I can go back there. That's inherently fun. Right?
It is unfortunate that the way apparently you get those things is stupid as hell.
Oh yeah, it is kind of dumb.
It's like flashbacks, right?
Yeah, but it's like you get to a point, you come to like an obstacle, and he's like, Cal, like, he gets this flashback from when he's being trained as a Jedi, and then like in that training, like he runs and he like wall runs for a second and then lands, and then it cuts back and Cal's like, oh yeah, I can do this. It's like, okay, I don't buy that. Like, sure, you haven't been using your Jedi powers for a few years, but you forgot how to like do some acrobatics, or like there's force pull.
Really bad in-universe explanation.
You'd been like stopping things with the force, pushing things with the force, doing all this or whatever, and then there was this whole thing of like him remembering that he could force pull. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like they should have just done it. They should have just given you the ability and not tried to explain.
Yeah,
it.
I kind of said it when Dari mentioned it before. Like it would have been better if it was just a gamey thing of you can just suddenly do it.
What's the time difference between whatever, like Order 86 or what? 66, where they 666, where they there's the coup and all the Jedi die in between the events of this game.
I don't know exactly. It's not that far after. I mean, that's definitely the closest analog. Like we're not at A New Hope time yet. We're definitely in between there. It's long enough to where the Empire has kind of established itself. Like you start this game in like this mining colony thing or whatever that's run by the Empire. So you're kind of just this almost like a slave worker, working for the Empire. And they're stormtroopers. The Empire is a threat everywhere, yes. But it is like still somewhat of a new thing, But it was enough to where there's like kind of a revolt against the Empire within the mining colony or stuff. Like it's been long enough to where
Yeah, when are they going to talk about what happened between 6 and 7? Why is it always between 3 and 4? Come on, guys.
We are Mandalorian, my dude.
Oh, yeah. I don't watch this shit.
Yeah, but your main character, his name is Cal, right?
Cal Kestis.
Yeah, he doesn't seem that old. And so, yeah, that doesn't sound like the flashback. There has not been enough time to warrant like these flashbacks of, I forgot this thing. Yeah. It's like, dude, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about that part. But yeah, you're right. I mean, in the flashbacks, he's like, looks pretty young, but it's still, I mean, that would be like me forgetting something from when I was like 12 or 13 from like something like, I don't know, it's just something as simple as like running and jumping on something and it's just like, okay, that's kind of dumb.
He has amnesia from the time he was the Joker.
Yeah, this is true.
All right.
So it's one of those things like I completely understand people like I do not think Jedi Fallen Order is like a must play game. I think it is a ton of fun, and if you're looking for like you want a Star Wars game, like it is a good game. It's a good fun game. I'm interested in the story. Like the story is kind of minimal at times because this game, like, which I was kind of concerned about the opposite. I was concerned this would be like too cinematic of a game, but it's actually like it's a very gamey game. Like for most of the time you are in this environment and you are like doing the souls dodging and everything like, oh God, I really hope I can get to a bonfire. It's a meditation point, but it works the exact same as a bonfire. Which that whole dynamic is really cool. You have 3, you can heal yourself 3 times, but after that you can't until you get to the bonfire. So there's a lot of times like I'm about to die and I'm like, please don't hit me.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Yeah. But that is most of the game is very video gamey. Like I'm going to explore. I need to figure out how to solve this puzzle and then fight this enemy and then fight this boss and then like, backtrack, go do this or whatever, which is really fun. But it also means that the story is kind of given to you in chunks every now and then. It's like, oh, here's a story thing. And then now you're going to be kind of exploring and fighting for another 2 hours, so again, that could be a plus or minus depending, but the story has been interesting enough, and I kind of liked it. It definitely seems like they gave Respawn the Star Wars universe, and they're like, do whatever you want, because it's not rehashing. That you go to, there's only been one planet we've gone to that I recognize from a different one. The rest of them have all been new, and they even have like the people living on these planets have these backstories that are very different for Star Wars. Like there's just people using the Force in these like weird ways that no one's ever seen before. Just these types of aliens that no one's ever seen before. And there hasn't been like cameos left and right.
Right. That's good.
Like that, which I really like. I was worried that was going to kind of be ham-fisted in, which I'm not done, but it doesn't seem like it's going that way. Which is cool. Like everything, like it seems Star Wars, but it also seems kind of unique in the way Respawn's doing this.
I can't wait till he meets a young Luke and like, you're gonna be great, kid.
Gives him his lightsaber. So do you find yourself more pulled along by the story beats or kind of the moment-to-moment gameplay, kind of solving that gameplay puzzle to get to the next checkpoint?
I think definitely the gameplay.
Okay.
I don't, at least from what I've played, there's not enough story for that to be the driving force. Like, if the gameplay wasn't good, then I think this game would be falling apart for me right now, because the story is interesting, but it is kind of sparse. You know what I mean? Like, if I was really just wanting that next cutscene, then I think that I would be a little like burned out by the rest of it.
So it's more of like, oh yes, I solved this section and now I'm at a new part. Oh hey, cool, a new story cutscene. Yeah, and it's not like, oh god, I'm just trying to get through this gameplay so I can see the next story beat. Right. It's the latter, not the former. Right. Or the former, not the latter.
Yeah, former, not the latter.
Now insert where he falls. Through the floor and has to restart.
Yeah, I have had multiple times where like I was playing with my sister and like I just started walking and I just started like sinking into the floor and I'm like, oh god, like jumped up and I was away from it. And I showed Jeff last night. I fell off a cliff and then he just like froze in place, just sitting there.
That's just the force, dude. Like it's part of the game.
You're right, dude. It's force powers. And I did hear Kirk Hamilton from Kotaku. There's a planet where you're not supposed to be able to make this jump until you get a double jump. Apparently, eventually, I still haven't gotten it. But so you're supposed to have stopped at that planet, and you have to go back to your ship and go somewhere else, and you can come back there later. Well, his game glitched, and he was trying to make that jump, and it glitched out and let him make the jump.
That's amazing. Anyway. I love that shit so much in games.
But he made the jump, and he didn't know about the double jump thing. He's like, "Oh, that was weird." Well, anyway, I'm here, and he kept going. So the game expects you to have a double jump when you get in there. Okay. So he kept going. So he got to another part where you had to have a double jump to get through, and he didn't have the double jump. He tried to go back, and he couldn't go back. He tried to load his save, and it was loading in that area. He was 13 hours into the game, and he had to start the whole thing over.
Damn.
Because he was just completely trapped.
That's not cool.
Yeah. And I've heard of other people having game breaking stuff. Like, I've been relatively fortunate. I've had to restart twice, I think, but I could absolutely see people playing this and having a catastrophic failure. So it's a hard game completely. Like, it's easy for me to recommend it because it is it's fun. Like, I'm enjoying, like, I want to go play it tonight. Like, I'm like still this far in, I want to keep going back to it.
But unless you're dying, maybe wait to hear about a patch.
Yeah. And I mean, it is maybe wait for a sale. It's one of those, like, review scores are kind of dumb, but like if you did that, you couldn't put this like more than like a 7 or something like that because of all the issues it has. And even the story is not like gripping. It's just it's minimal, but it's interesting enough. Like I like where we're going with it. And there's like, just when I was starting to get a little bored with the story, there was just a twist the last time I played. And I'm like, oh, okay, like that character is related to this character in this certain way. That's
it was great when Darth Vader came out. Cal, I am your brother.
No. Yeah. So. Fun game.
Sounds like a pretty fun game, but there's like an asterisk.
Yes, that. But there are other cool things. Like, you can also it is. I'm not saying that I don't think Souls and Bloodborne games or whatever should have a difficulty. I mean, I think it's like in the structure of that game, I don't think it makes sense. But this game is kind of an interesting answer to that question of like, can you have a Souls type game or whatever with a difficulty setting? Because this, like, the difficulty, there are like 4 different options, and you can change them anytime you want. You can change them mid-fight if you wanted to. You can be in the middle of a fight and change it down to easy, or change it back to hard and everything. And I have been fluctuating between hard and normal at different times, which is, it's pretty cool. And it is like the combat is satisfying, but just like everything else, like, it's satisfying, but it's not as good as Sekiro. Just like the platforming is good, not as good as Tomb Raider and Uncharted.
Yeah,
that's pretty much every step of the way. But
yeah, I mean, certainly I would say part of my enjoyment of the Souls series comes from winning those really difficult battles, beating that boss that you've been trying for an hour or so, or getting through that area, finding a secret. Beating a hard boss. And do you think those rewarding gameplay moments happen as much in Fallen Order?
Not as much, but they 100% do. I mean, it's something like, everything, like I said, every single part of this is just slightly lesser than what it's trying to emulate. Because like, I'm not trying, the boss battles are not so hard that I've been trying for an hour and I'm like standing up and yelling or whatever, but they are pretty challenging. And like, there are definitely times I'll die to the boss and like, I know what I did wrong. I'm like, oh, damn it. I read that animation wrong. Like, I'm an idiot. I knew that. I should have known that. Get me back in. There's an element of that, but obviously I think it stops short of being that, like I don't die as much as you would there. Not that death's equal quality, but it's
certainly
not as robust as that. And the load times are atrocious. They are freaking terrible.
that can be a real hard thing with
it's
those type of
especially
games.
when you get to like boss battles that you're dying over and over again. It's pretty bad.
Well, Dory, some people might look at like you with that frog.
Oh yeah, there's like a frog that everyone was having a hard time with, and I was too. I died multiple times. I finally got to it. I hit it once with my lightsaber. It lunged at me and jumped off a cliff. I got the experience.
There
like,
you go.
Hey.
That's a win.
That's a win.
Pro gamer Darby Holman.
All right, Jacob. Well, this is the like full game recap episode, but I'm fine with it. We had a lot to get through.
Sure.
Jacob, take your pick. What do you want to talk about, my dude?
I'll take this moment to talk about Afterparty.
Let's do it.
Okay. You can go read my
Drink
review.
with the devil.
Yes. You can go read my review of Afterparty on the Nerds at Large blog.
nerdsatlarge.wordpress.com.
That's it. So this game is by Night School Studio, who made Oxenfree, which game I enjoyed quite a bit. You played that game too. You enjoyed it.
I also enjoyed it quite a bit.
Jeff, have you played Oxenfree?
No.
Okay.
Needs to.
So I liked Oxenfree quite a bit. I was looking forward to Afterparty, and I do gotta say I am pretty disappointed in Afterparty.
Yeah. I'm definitely interested to talk to you about it because this is also a game, same thing as you. I really like Oxenfree. I like the writing of it, and I like I'm just interested to hear what you say because like this game just felt like it was such a slam dunk, just like right from the premise.
Its premise is amazing,
so good, and the trailers like look. It gave me the Oxenfree vibe, but it kind of seemed more like we're putting our hair down. Like it's like let's let loose,
right?
But, yeah.
So I was actually looking around last night for people kind of talking about Afterparty because I've not seen a ton of coverage of it. And I think actually Waypoint Radio, they talked about it recently on one of their podcasts, and I listened to that bit. And the guy who was speaking about Afterparty really, really captured the same feelings I had toward the game. It was very validating in my experience. And so I think the problem with Afterparty is that it, whereas it's going to be compared to Oxenfree a lot because it's the same type of game where the dialogue, the character interactions are the most important thing. That is the meat of the game. It is kind of navigating your way through these kind of very free-flowing feeling conversations.
Yeah.
And so in Oxenfree, you're playing as a group of teenagers. And it definitely, I think it captures that maybe like teenager experience, that dialogue very well.
It reminds me of Life is Strange, even though I think the writing is better than Life is Strange.
I would agree.
But like the people are like awkward and kind of cliche, but that's kind of the point. It's like it's one of those like just when you start to be like grown at the dialogue, like stop and remember what you were like at that age. It is kind of one of those, Yeah.
But also what worked with Oxenfree is that you have that kind of that irony, that kind of cliche kind of teenager personality, but that works because they're teenagers and also because the game, I think from the very beginning, kind of hints at these deeper themes, these deeper struggles within these characters. Because, for example, you have the main character in Oxenfree, and then you have her stepbrother, and it's established very quickly that there is kind of a weird relationship between those two going on, and that's interesting. Yeah. Afterparty does not have that. Its main two characters are so ironic, so trying to be funny that there's not really those deeper themes until the very, very end of the game. And I agree. I did not like this game very much until about the halfway point.
Yeah.
Its humor is it's all vocally delivered. And it's just so nonstop. It's so ironic, or trying to be ironic and trying to be funny, trying to be clever and witty, but it's just not as funny or as witty as it thinks it is.
Yeah.
And it's happening every single line that comes out of these characters' mouths.
That's a bummer.
To the point to where it just becomes white noise and you just become numb to it. And you're not, at most you're chuckling.
Yeah. That is I mean, I guess it is one of those, like, even premise wise, that is a hard thing to nail down. I mean, like, it was coming with a very, like, kind of comedic tone to it. It's one of those you would have been disappointed if it wasn't comedic almost at this point.
That's a hard thing to nail in games, and they do not hit it.
What's also interesting, because, like, I don't know if you agree, but I almost feel like Oxenfree is the opposite. I think the first parts of Oxenfree are the best parts. I think that, like, I think some of the middle and, like, latter, like, I think the ending is cool, but I think some of the latter parts of Oxenfree, it did start to, like, lose me a little bit. Like,
I'd agree with
the
that.
pacing started to break down a little bit. Whereas I feel like the beginning of Oxenfree, I'm like, what is going on? I really want to know. Like you said, there's, like, from the character relationships and the, like, supernatural stuff, there was unanswered questions and mysteries immediately, and it roped me in. It's interesting to hear you say an Afterparty that the beginning was dull and you didn't get there until the end.
Yeah, and I should back up too. So Afterparty, basically you play as two best friends who go to the same, they just recently graduated from the same, what I'm assuming is a small liberal arts college. Their names are Milo and Lola, and they find themselves in hell. So you start the game, and they are in hell. They don't know how they died. They don't know why they're in hell. And so basically you just kind of go from there. And so hell in Afterparty is pretty much like it is, there's still that, people are still being tortured, and you kind of are given this, over the top punishment for, like, I don't know, cutting in line at the grocery store. But then after hours, hell becomes pretty much like your college, bar scene to where people are drinking and partying and throwing up in the street, and there's neon everywhere, and it's grody and disgusting. And but demons and humans alike are just kind of partaking in this, like, this drunkenness vibe. And so they quickly learn, Milo and Lola, they learn from, I believe, Sam, who is voiced by Ashley Birch.
Yep.
Who's like this kind of taxi driver who kind of takes them around hell. They learn from her that you can escape from hell by out drinking Satan.
Right.
In a drinking game.
Yeah.
And so the game kind of goes where they got to go through this chain of events to eventually get to Satan so they can out drink him and go back to their normal lives.
Yep.
But the problem is that, I like the characters a lot in Oxenfree. I think Milo and Lola are entirely these insufferable characters. I cannot stand them. I dislike them. And by the end of the game, I did not give two shits what happened to them.
That sucks, yeah.
Especially because, they are said to be best friends, but because you start in hell and they don't exactly remember a ton, it never really explores why these two people are friends in the first place. And you're also switching between Milo and Lola at natural intervals, and so the nuances of their personalities are kind of lost because you're picking dialogue options for both characters.
For both of them, yeah.
And so, I mean, you get the idea that, like, Lola, you get the idea of, what her ideals and maybe, like, her kind of misanthropic personality, and Milo is a little more skittish and anxious, but there's still these differences that you don't really get by switching between the two characters. And the game does hint at, like, these interesting backstories, but by the third act it just kind of drops that for a rather more interesting themes towards the end of the game. But yeah, like, the characterization of them just feels messy, not interesting, and then all the humor and their personalities that the game builds them up as, they are just not very likable characters, which can be fine, but they don't explore those unlikable personalities in a satisfying way.
Yeah. And so what is, like, you're supposed to like them, like the
or
you're
supposed to
writing
at least
team
feel for them by the end, but I really didn't.
Yeah. And that I had not, honestly, like, now that you say that, it kind of makes perfect sense, but I had not even thought about the two different characters and the fact that you're spending most of your time with all of them and like them not being built up because you're playing both of them. That had not really even occurred to me that much. But in Oxenfree, like, yeah, you're playing Alyx, on their name?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And especially towards the middle part of this game, it starts to hint at that Milo and Lola, their friendship is maybe not the best friendship. It may be toxic in a lot of ways. But it just kind of drops that at the very end, in the final act.
So you think this is something just this team tried to tackle a tone and vibe that they just couldn't nail, or do you think there's like deeper problems with the I don't know, just the writing? Like, are you still interested in Night School's next project?
I mean, I'm still interested, but I think it depends on like what lessons they take away, if any, what lessons they take away from Afterparty. I think they kind of zeroed in on maybe some aspects from Oxenfree that maybe players didn't really care for.
Yeah,
and they kind of dialed that up. Again, like the ironic humor that was in Oxenfree, because they're teenagers, is cranked up to 11 here.
Yeah, and
if you're not into that humor, which I'm certainly not, it will not work for you.
Was it like Borderlands-esque bad, or was it?
No, it was just a lot, and again, trying to be smart. Whereas Borderlands is very lowbrow. It's trying to be. It thinks it's smart and witty, but not as much as it thinks it is. And then again, the volume of it is just so overwhelming.
Yeah. Do you think it would have been better if it, like, do you think that their projects like would be better if it was more grounded in a way like Oxenfree? Not that Oxenfree crazy things were happening, but do you think that the going to hell and just like, I don't know, the setting is larger than life, so then we also have to have the characters be kind of out there as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and again, that waypoint bit, they kind of really captured it very perfectly and succinctly, where they said that the irony of its characters is not really separated from the irony of its world. So at no point is the game showing you that Milo and Lola are really, it never really paints a clear picture why they're in hell, because hell itself kind of reinforces their personalities in a way. So
it just kind of feels like they were made for this. It's not like they were just dropped into hell, like this world or whatever. It's almost like they're just a part of this. I mean, that's part of what I liked about Oxenfree so much is, these were just like awkward teenagers who are very immature and don't really know how to deal with the situation, and the setting they're in is this like terrifying sci-fi nightmare thing or whatever. It's like the dichotomy between that. Yes. You got that they were scared, they don't know how to do this, and like they did not fit with everything going on. But also the island, like a lot of times the island was normal. It was like a normal island, and it made the like weird things that happening that much more impactful. Yeah, and we never get to see what their life was like on Earth. We never get to see what hell, I guess, normally is like when it's not, party town. It's just that, disgusting, 5 Points-esque world all the time. And then another thing is that they changed art styles for this game too. Whereas Oxenfree had this kind of watercolor backdrops. Everything in this game is very three-dimensional. Yeah, it's still 2D, but you're still moving on a two-dimensional plane. Even from trailers, I definitely preferred Oxenfree style. Yeah, I think it's kind of ugly, the art style. I did not really enjoy it. I mean, I think Oxenfree is one of the most visually compelling games I think I've ever played. I mean, at least in some of the environmental stuff going on. But and again, it's a game that I think just has a ton of problems on its writing, which is what it leans on the most. And is there much other gameplay besides the writing? Like the gameplay is pretty much like Oxenfree. The one change in the hook, I guess the gameplay hook to this, is that when you're at a bar, which you spend most of the game in bars, you can go up to the bartender and you can order a drink, which will unlock a third drunken option, which when you sip your drink during a conversation, it will
unlock this option. And then the type of option that you have, what you can say, depends on what drink you get. And so each drink comes with a little descriptor. It can be liquid courage or witty asshole or pirate captain.
Yeah.
And while those can be funny, some of those ones can be funny and interesting depending on the situation, they don't really feel like they impact the course of the conversation as much as the normal two options you are giving.
Yeah.
And then there are some mini games thrown in, but they're very few and far between. And overall, the gameplay just feels very underdeveloped.
Yeah. That's a bummer. I'll still might give this a shot at some point, mostly just because it's on Xbox Game Pass, so don't have to pay anything
That's
more.
the only way I could recommend this game is that if you can play it on Game Pass, check it out. You might like it more than I did. But
I just want to be able to talk about it mostly. I mean, how long was it about?
About 5 hours.
Yeah, it's not bad. Jeff, did you have anything?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I was really looking forward to that game.
Yeah, me too.
I'll be interested to see what I think. But I mean, what you said sounds, I don't know. Like a lot of what you said sounds like it would make sense now. Like I had not really considered a lot of that. But
yeah, and I kind of wrote a lot of this down in my review. If you want to check that out as well. And there's performance issues too. I should note that there was a lot of stuttering, weirdly long load times, some glitches
for such a small game,
such a visually
simple,
undemanding game that there was a lot of there's masked loading screens where you're in the cab and you're kind of going down this lava river and the dialogue will just end but the game will still be loading, so your characters are just sitting in the cab in complete silence for what feels like a minute or 30
Sounds
seconds.
like a cab ride.
It feels like forever. I mean, it does feel like a cab ride, but you're just sitting there like, okay. Especially with the conversation, it's not that gripping or interesting.
Yeah. That is a bummer. So do y'all want to talk about Control, or do you want to save that for another time since we are running long?
I honestly feel like that might be better once me and you get our hands on it.
Yeah, okay.
Especially since it's, old in the grand scheme of things now.
Right. Well, I mean, you can go read. I wrote a review on that too, which you can read.
Yeah. So nerdsalarge.wordpress.com. You can get Jacob's full thoughts on Control.
But it is an exciting game that we can talk about for sure.
Yeah.
Bring it by the next time you come by.
Sure. Yes. Definitely do that.
No, let's go break into his house.
Yeah. That was the plan.
All right, Jeffrey. Well, it's a long time into this podcast, but that was honestly all really, really good. So I'm A-okay with it. But let's get into some news. Give me a news jingle.
Jingle, jingle, jingle. You know my favorite way to start the news section is, Darby?
Is that a game announcement, Jeff?
Nope, it's shitting on companies, but we're starting with the game announcement anyway. Okay, not going to read the whole thing, but the information comes from Matt Kim from IGN. Guys, it finally happened. A new Half-Life game was announced.
All right, all gaming podcasts have to shut down. We did it now. All right, games are done. Bye.
Yeah. Oh, wait, there's one thing. It's VR only.
And also, I don't think Alyx is 3. The last I checked, that Alyx does not mean 3.
Yeah. Hey, Half-Life Alyx was announced. It's a full-length Half-Life game that's played completely in VR. It's going to be released on all PC-based VR sets in March 2020. And I think that's most of the general stuff. Right. For the story stuff, people who know Half-Life know that.
So this is like obviously people have been waiting for anything Half-Life, and honestly almost anything from Valve for a very long time. Obviously a very bizarre way of having Half-Life continue. It's something that is clearly not financially driven, because if Valve wanted to, they could give a studio a bunch of money. They can make Half-Life 3, put it on every platform imaginable, and it's going to sell a good amount. If it was just money, that's what they would have done. The fact that it's just on just a VR game, obviously not like on PSVR, not on the biggest VR headset. So it's like a fragment of even the VR space, which is already a super, super small fragment of the larger gamer base. Very, very interesting. I honestly I don't know. Like my immediate reaction is to think that this would be something kind of smaller, but then people also said that it was apparently like it's a 20-hour experience or something.
Oh yeah, it's supposed to be the same length as the last Half-Life or whatever.
So,
It'll be like
so
15
I guess I'll
hours.
get through my things and they'll take it over to y'all. Like, I expect this thing to sell some VR units. I mean, I think there are definitely going to be people who are going to go out and get this just because, like, people love Half-Life. I mean, Half-Life is one of the most influential games ever released. 100%. There's no denying that. So any way that it comes back, there are going to be people talking about it. And just, I think people talking about it online, especially if it's good, then that's going to make a lot of people feel like they're missing out. And they're going to buy VR units, which, hey, that's good with me. More people buying VR is cool.
Yeah.
But obviously, I think there's no chance this thing sells anywhere close to what like an actual Half-Life game would sell. And I really don't know what people are going to think about this. You know.
So looks like I agree it's going to sell some VR things, but how much I have no idea. Just because the cheapest headset that you could use to play this thing is still $400. And then you also need a good PC to run this. And I think that might be part of the reason it's not on PSVR, because I really don't think PSVR would be able to do this game, because it looks to be by far the most ambitious VR game that is going to be on the market, which is good. I'm glad that it looks like Valve is taking VR forward and to potentially get more people interested. And just from a gameplay, looking at the trailer, I'm like, oh, I want more VR games like this. It looks more like an actual full game and stuff, and the stuff that it looks like you can do just with your hands with it, as far as like just moving stuff over, which I know, just pushing stuff out of the way to look at stuff, which I know that's not like a big thing, but in VR, that's not something that happens a lot, not without it being kind of, you know, janky or it's supposed to be silly or whatever. So having them do that will be cool. Yeah, I do think you'll sell more VR and get more people talking about VR. Also, kind of one of the things that I'm very curious about, because if this doesn't do well, like particularly well, or move the needle crazy amounts, like, well, what really will at this point?
And also, if this thing comes out and it's just kind of like okay, and like not many people play it because of the VR, and it just moves on, it does kind of feel like, Valve, this is how you cash that check. Like you've had this, like they've had this in their back pocket. Like anytime we wanted to, we could make the internet lose their minds with a new Half-Life game, and especially if this is kind of like, it would be like that was a weird time to, you know.
Yeah, I do appreciate though that they were before they released the trailer, just like 2 days before, they were like straight up, hey, we're announcing this is a VR game, because they were hitting at Half-Life. There were leaks beforehand, so
that would have been super bad if they had just been like Half-Life, tune in Thursday. That would have been terrible.
Yeah, so props to them to being upfront about what kind of game this actually was. Yeah. But I'm very excited to see more about this. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to get it because it's not on my system. I'm not paying $400 plus for a better laptop or whatever for a. Which I think, to be clear, none of the three of us have really played Half-Life, right? Yeah.
No.
So what do you think about this, Jacob?
I really like it a lot. Again, I have not played Half-Life, and I've not been waiting, forever for Half-Life 3. But I think this is, way more interesting than just, a Half-Life free. That, Valve is willing to kind of do this very ambitious VR project with, a series like Half-Life. And I mean, if you think back to the first Half-Life, I know that game is very important because of the way it pushed narrative-driven first-person shooters, which is not something that, you had Doom and Wolfenstein, they were very arcadey, and Half-Life kind of was like, no, you can have a very story-driven first-person shooter, and this seems to be like, you can have a very story-driven, ambitious, full-on VR game.
Yeah,
right.
Which I think is very.
Yeah, I agree. This is more. It's the less safe option, but it's a lot more exciting because, like you said, it does seem like after all this time, it's like, oh, we're not just. I do feel like after all this time, it would be good, but like if they just dropped a Half-Life 3 and it was kind of the continuation of that, it would feel like, yeah, it is good, but it's not going to be anywhere near as like industry shattering as Half-Life 1 and 2 were, because we have a lot of games like that now. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, yeah, they come out here, like Jeff said, already from one trailer, Jeff was confident in saying, like, this is probably the most ambitious VR thing on the market, which, you know, that kind of shows you.
Like, and I know they talk about doing other VR stuff. I'm honestly surprised. I guess it could still be in the pipeline. I'm honestly surprised they haven't done or have it announced like Portal VR, because that sounds like
that could be great.
That's more
so much sense.
Or vomit inducing.
Or vomit inducing.
Yeah. That might be why it's not, because they tried. It's like, ooh, but that sounds more
puked everywhere.
That sounds more immediately appealing as far as it being in VR than Half-Life necessarily, just because the concept of it.
Yeah, which I mean, as exciting as this is, like, it's easy. It's kind of easy for us to say this is very interesting and very exciting because we don't really have skin in the game. I completely get it if you are a big Half-Life fan and you're kind of bummed out about this. Yeah. I mean, it would be like the equivalent of Final Fantasy VII Remake is finally actually happening, and like, oh, Darby, you have to go spend $900 if you want to actually play this game.
Darian, actually, you're playing as a side character, and it's taking place in between Crisis Core and the original 7.
You're playing as Zack, and you're
yeah.
Yeah.
Because also it's just something that people have mixed feelings about based on what I've seen is the fact it is between 1 and 2.
Which that almost makes me feel like they are still leaving the door open for the Half-Life 3. Even if it is still certainly. VR, but they're definitely like, they're not cashing that check yet. It's like, So like, even if this goes wrong, it's like, oh, it was a weird prequel thing. It's not
I got a feeling, just partly because this is VR and it's kind of more of a side thing, that when they do Half-Life 3, it is going to be non-VR. Yeah, just because I feel like it makes more sense to do a Half-Life thing as a side thing like this, but for Half-Life 3, you got to go out because that'll just make buttloads of money, where you might not make as much on VR.
Oh, 100% won't make as much. Yeah. I don't think that's in question.
But we're talking about Half-Life fans going crazy. They'll get it just for this. But there'll be Half-Life fans that would who won't get it for this, but would get it if this was actually 3.
Yeah, you're inherently going to sell more to people with consoles and PCs that they already own versus having to go out and buy things.
And also props to Valve to the fact they are not just limiting this to their hardware, their VR hardware. It's for any PC based.
Yeah, which I thought
VR
it was.
set.
That was news to me before we started the podcast.
Yeah. I'd like this to potentially be on PSVR. I'm not a Half-Life guy, but just the way the game looks and looks like it plays, I would be sold on that alone.
Yeah, it might be too powerful for PSVR.
That's honestly what I think. Yeah. Even if it's not just, we're keeping it on PC only, just keep it on our store, I do think the whole power thing would be a play if they even considered it.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy.
It's going to be interesting to keep up with, for sure.
Speaking of interesting things to keep up with, guys, we got a juicy rumor, and it's along the kind of rumors like, no shit. This comes from Tom Phillips for Eurogamer. Capcom will follow its successful Resident Evil 2 remake with a new version of Resident Evil 3, a report today suggests. This comes from YouTuber Spawnwave, who said it was on track for a 2020 launch. Eurogamer has heard of the project also. Sources close to its development suggest it has been in development for some time, although the franchise's upcoming multiplayer portion, Project Resistance, is currently being given the spotlight. It's no surprise that this game actually exists.
Nope.
The surprising thing is that apparently it's launching next year, or at least currently planned.
Yeah, that I kind of doubt. I just
doubt the.
Yeah, but because I figured Capcom. Well, maybe would probably want to keep with their trend of releasing Resident Evil games in January of every odd number month or odd number year. Because you had Resident Evil 7 2017, RE2 Remake this year, and then 2021 January probably RE3.
Depending, because they're doing, it would be 2, not counting Project Resistance, 2 remakes back to back. Is they don't want to do that because then they want to get Resident Evil 8 out sooner.
Which I would prefer to see first before.
Yeah, I think this is just me just thinking. I think part of the reason, let's say, if this is all true, 3 would come potentially first is because they're reusing assets. And correct me if I'm wrong, because you know a lot more about Resident Evil than I do. I just heard this from the Easy Allies talking about it. It takes place beside Resident Evil 2, and there's a lot of stuff in the game you could reuse assets and stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
So that might explain why it'd be a much quicker turnaround.
Yeah, the original Resident Evil 3 was made using a lot of reused assets from the first, the original Resident Evil 2. So it it'd be very fitting for them to reuse all the assets from Resident Evil 2 Remake for Resident Evil 3 Remake.
Plus, they have the engine, which why would you change from that engine?
Exactly. And the game is set right before and then immediately after the events of Resident Evil 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you like love Resident Evil 2 Remake. Everyone did. It was awesome. But I'm interested, do you fall like more in the camp? And again, I have not played any of the other Resident Evil, so I don't, but do you fall more in the camp that RE2 Remake was awesome, so let's keep remaking these and go on to 3, let's keep doing this? Or are you more in the camp of like RE2 Remake was awesome, let's use what we learned to like move forward and do things? Like, is the thought of like remaking another one of these kind of like dull to you, like thinking like, oh, we're just rehashing these things over and over again? Or are you like pumped for this just as much as you were RE2? I
mean, it's complicated. I definitely would like to see an RE3 remake. Because out of the original trilogy of Resident Evil games, Resident Evil 3 is the most action type of those games. Yeah. And it actually introduced a lot of mechanics that became staples of the Resident Evil series. So the quick turn was first introduced in Resident Evil 3. Gunpowder mixing was introduced in that game, which you see in Resident Evil 2 Remake, for sure. But yeah, Resident Evil 3 compared to 2, and especially compared to 1, is way more action heavy with action set pieces than the other two. So seeing that, redone with modern technology, modern kind of gaming experience would be really, really interesting to see.
Okay. Other question, do you think this keeps going to 4?
So so I understand why people would not want to play those old PlayStation 1 Resident Evil games. I personally like them a lot because I like that traditional survival horror feel. But to a lot of people, that is archaic and unplayable. Mm-hmm. Resident Evil 4 is not like those.
Like you can still go play that right now.
You can still go play that right now. That is an amazing... And I played it for the first time last year. That is an amazing, almost immaculate game. And I don't really see a point in remaking it like the way that these older games need to be remade.
Right. Honestly, I don't feel like they are going to plan to, because they just keep on re-releasing Resident Evil 4, and I gotta imagine it keeps on selling decently well based off that.
Yeah,
I think at that point, then you just, once they're done with because I feel like based on my knowledge of Resident Evil 1, 2, 3 being the ones that get remade makes sense. You then go, they're making 8 right now. That's the thing that is happening.
Yes.
Also, so release that, and then I know there are a bunch of Resident Evil spinoffs. I'm not saying necessarily make another one of those exact side series, but you can make another spinoff that's not a number one.
Yeah.
Because I know not much of the originals for the most part, but people enjoy those.
Give me a Mr. X dating some cowards.
Exactly, Dory. Now you get it.
But as far as remakes go, though, I don't like Resident Evil 3 is not the one that needs to be remade the most. Like Code Veronica is way more, could really use some touch up. And Resident Evil 0 did a lot of interesting things with like co-op and like switching between characters that quite frankly, it was interesting, but not exactly well executed.
Yeah.
But doing that again and maybe perfecting that could be really, really good.
I think it just seems like their approach with this is to take the good popular games and modernize them, not take the games with flaws and make them good.
Yeah, which is understandable.
Yeah, they want to take the already base good game and just enhance it instead of like, all right, let's fix this. Which I get that.
Yeah, and also from marketing standpoint, it's like having a number title. It's more marketable than
absolutely,
especially people know those exist, like Resident Evil Veronica.
What do y'all think sales of this will do in comparison to RE2 Remake? Because I feel like RE2 Remake will be the bigger deal. I feel like RE2 Remake sells more than RE3 Remake. Maybe I'm wrong, though.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but my devil's advocate position would be a lot of times sequels sell more.
They do.
Resident Evil 2 has been received very, very well. I gotta imagine then there'll be a thing, and maybe at least initial sales for Resident Evil 3 will be higher than initial sales of Resident Evil 2. Maybe in the long run, Resident Evil 2 will still sell more.
I just feel like RE2, and maybe I'm just putting too much weight in like our video game industry bubble, but it just RE2 Remake was something that we had been waiting for so long, and like, holy shit, it's here, and how does it look this good? Whereas like I feel like RE3 Remake, there'll be a lot less talk about it because it's like, yeah, we know this is good, we know this engine, we know all this. I just don't feel like it'll be as much of an event as RE2 Remake.
I feel like maybe not as much as an event, but I think it'll still be talked about just because that's what we're going to get to. Resident Evil is up for Game of the Year awards, and if this is coming out in 2020, that's still going to be fresh in people's mind when Resident Evil 3 is being talked about.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get as much like maybe critical praise or attention or like nominations as say Resident Evil 2 Remake, but I still think it's going to sell a buttload, especially because people are like, oh, I played Resident Evil 2 Remake. Why wouldn't I play?
Plus, Resident Evil 2 is a short enough game that even it is coming out the next year. It's not like it's a very long game. It's like, oh, I don't want more of this. People are like, I love Resident Evil 2. I want more. That type of thing. And even though, like Jacob said, it's different anyway. So,
yep.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see. A lot of those set pieces in Resident Evil 3 would look really, really cool in like modern graphics.
And that RE2 engine is so good that it's like, just keep making games with that for a while.
They're even Devil May Cry is also made of that engine.
Yeah.
So, final thing, I guess, before we move on, will this be announced at the Game Awards? Do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a decent shot. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't, but I think there's a pretty good shot. I would. Yeah, same. Gun to my head, yes.
It's either here or it'll be announced at E3, I guess.
Yeah, if it's not at Game Awards, it'll definitely be at E3 because I think it's going to come out in 2021 or late 2020.
Yeah, that's the thing with 2020. When I keep saying, like, I think it might make that 2020 thing, and I think they are planning for late 20s.
Stay away from Q1 and Q2, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Run away.
I mean, let's say that, it does come out late 2020, and it's cross-gen. That's a pretty good, potential launch title for the new consoles.
Yeah, that would be.
I feel like there's so many games that we've said like, oh, that's gonna be a launch title, and probably like less than half of them will actually be a launch title.
If it comes out around, then it is cross-gen, just right off the bat, or it could be next-gen exclusive. Who the hell knows? That'd be a big deal.
Especially if I'm a third party, there's no way I want to be exclusive on the machine that's just being sold. Like, I understand like Sony and Microsoft's first party ones doing that because they want to sell their things. But like if I'm Capcom's like, no, I think I'll also put this on the platform with over 100 million sales.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Maybe on the Google Stadia. I'm not going to read this long list of games, guys. Don't worry. But Google Stadia launched and people think it exists. It exists.
It's a thing that exists.
Just an update for last week because we kind of tore into it because of its kind of weak launch lineup some. They expanded the launch lineup, you assume because of everyone talking shit about it. They just added games that they were going to release this year anyway. And honestly, it doesn't move the meter that much for me personally as far as my feelings about it. It's still just a bunch of old games and it's still like a crazy number. And if they could just suddenly snap their fingers and just add these games, why not add a bunch more?
Yeah, and it kind of seems like with how fast they suddenly added these, they were obviously, I think, going to do a rollout of them.
Yeah, they're going to roll out, which if you're going to do these old games, just go ahead and release them all at once. No one's going to care about a rollout for a bunch of old games.
I still think, like, now that we're after the launch, I still feel the same way as I did last week, where, like, honestly, what's happening would be fine if they had messaged it right. If it had just been like, this is a beta, it's not going to be feature complete, and we're just like, we're trying this out, but you get to like, it's exciting, come like test this new stuff. I feel like from what a lot of people have said, like it runs decently well for like
depending it's very mixed.
Yes, but in comparison to like other streaming platforms, it seemed that we have out right now, it seems like the best one. I'm not saying it's where it needs to be, but it seems like it runs consistently the best. And that's why I think if it was a beta, then you'd have a lot of people writing articles being like, hey, this is like, we're still like, it's not out yet. Like they're still working on stuff, but they have a pretty good baseline here. Yeah. But the fact that there's literally, I'm going on YouTube to watch videos and there's Stadia commercials. That's ridiculous. Like, there's Stadia commercials acting like this is the real, like, the next, like, we're destroying consoles. Here's the future of gaming. I'm like, no, you are not even close to that yet. Maybe next year, but right now, half the things that you're even advertising you can't even fucking do right now. Like, the way that Google has handled this is just, it's just... Well, I don't know.
And just to add on to it sounds like it's a pain in the ass just to make your account for and do all that kind of stuff with it. And people who ordered the Founders Pack and paid money to get this thing got it days late.
Yeah.
So it's just a botch thing all around. Like, it could end up being good, but it's also the thing of, it is Google. They have the money. They have the reputation of just dropping things. No. Who's to say they won't do it here?
Yeah, I mean, I still do think that this launch could end up being a distant memory. If it ends up taking off, then I don't even think we'll talk about this launch. You know, it'll be something like, this launch is bad, and we talk about it a lot now. But if in like 5 years, it is that good and people are playing it, I don't think this will matter. Like, they could have had a good launch and it would be the same thing. Like, I don't think this will ultimately matter if they end up getting it. But in the moment, this was, again, it was fine. Like, xCloud is about the same thing, where it's like, we're not going to tell you a whole bunch of stuff yet because we're still working on it, but they're being upfront about that. Google Stadia is acting like they're setting the world on fire when they're not ready yet. They're just not ready.
It's kind of thing that would hurt Stadia because xCloud's being talked about, and just the timing of it of the Xbox thing a week ago, whenever it was, talking about it, and people being more like, okay, because the xCloud's in beta access and its lineup of games, it's better than this.
And xCloud is doing the exact thing. Like, me and Jeff kept saying that Google Stadia as a premise would be perfectly, like, I would be buying games on Stadia if you just had the option to download. Yeah. Then it's like, of course I'll buy my PC games there, because why not? Like, if the streaming doesn't work, then I just won't use it. I'll just play download, and it's no different than Steam or anything else. But I do have this other option if it does work. So it's like, duh, of course I will. But like, the fact that it's streaming only makes it like, if I pay $60 for this, it's a big gamble. Like, it better work, and if it doesn't work half time, whatever. xCloud, not only is it offering that, where like I will be able to like download my games on PC and then play them on xCloud. So it's exactly that thing. Not only that, Xbox has worked the last 2 years to make Xbox Game Pass like a must-buy service, and then that's going to work with xCloud. So like, I'm automatically going to be walking into xCloud with a bunch of games that I can more or less for free test out xCloud with. So like, it's a lot less like, yeah, I'm going to go try that. Me and you will be trying xCloud when it comes out, like, if it does work the way we think it is. Yeah. Whereas Stadia, I'm going to feel it's going to be a gamble, you know, if you don't want to drop that money down because you don't know if this will work or not.
And it's just right now, we're just limited
platforms to stream on.
Yeah, and again, this would be one thing if they weren't just talking. They were talking like this was a beta and not the launch. Very important. Botched it, but you know what did not botch? The Pokemon Sword and Shield sales. So we got some information about that, and it's looking very good. Let's see what we got here. Let's go from Chris Priestman from IGN. Pokemon Sword and Shield has sold over 6 million units in the first week to become the fastest selling Nintendo Switch title so far. The Pokemon Company announced today that Pokemon Sword and Shield has sold over 6 million units globally in its first week. I think it's less than a week that this was announced, but I'm going to use the bathroom, I believe. Okay. That includes both digital and physical sales since the game's release date on November 15th. As translated by industry analyst Daniel Ahmad, the Pokemon Company noted that this smashes the previous record held by Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which sold 5 million units in its opening week. Pokemon sells a lot of copies. Not surprising. And based on what people were saying, this does seem to potentially be record-breaking, not just for the Switch, but Pokemon in general. I think the only one... I want to say Sun and Moon is the only one that's not for sure, but it was like 7.2 million for Sun and Moon in its first month, or by the end of its first month. So Pokemon could easily eclipse that by then and just be the fastest selling Pokemon game. Could end up being the best one. I don't know. I don't remember the exact numbers of that. Red and Blue might still have a beat just because how long it's been out.
Yeah, it's not surprising. I mean, Switch plus Pokemon is a pretty obvious,
Yeah, it's an obvious thing, appealing thing, just because obviously people like playing Pokemon on the go, but then you also have the added benefit to play on the TV. And there are people that are like, I've heard of that do not really play games on the go or will not play games on handheld, but it being on TV, they would play it. And it's just also not surprising just from the fact that about every other Nintendo IP has broken records for its series with games on the Switch, despite it having less units out there than the other systems. Like at this point, Breath of the Wild is significantly the highest selling Zelda game.
For sure. Yeah.
It's getting close to double, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the Switch is a great console, and it just makes natural sense to put, your beloved IPs on the Switch.
Put everything on there. Where's the F-Zero game, Nintendo?
Put me on Switch.
Do it, cowards. Yeah. Oh. So Pokemon selling well. We'll keep people updated on any other updates. Probably may not be till their quarterly report.
Sold over 6 units.
6 whole units, Darby.
That's a lot of Pokemon.
Yep. Okay, guys, it's time to talk about their Game Awards. And there's nominees and all that.
The Keeleys. When are they going to just call them the Keeleys?
I
think they're scared. Cowards.
Darby, there's already talk about weird things with Death Stranding being over there and doesn't have Keeley's name on it. The awards.
Keeley Stranding.
Yep. Okay, so the way we're going to do this, we're going to go through the awards, talk about who we think will win, who we want to win, who we think was snubbed, yada, yada, yada. Which is whatever comes out of the conversation.
What direction are we going this so I can follow along on my second screen?
We start at the bottom, Darby, and go up.
Okay.
Because we got to end with the big one.
The big one, the family game.
Yeah.
Or esports player of the year.
Yeah.
I actually
that's
know
the most important one.
I actually know one of them because of Overwatch League. I know one esport. Okay. That's more than I normally do.
We start with the best VR/AR game. Nominees are Asgard's Wrath, Blood and Truth, Beat Saber, No Means Ski, and Trevor Saves the Universe. I'm just gonna go ahead and say Beat Saber's gonna win.
Yeah.
There's no question in my mind.
And I guess to be fair, that's the only one I've played, but I feel like Beat Saber should win. I mean, it sold so much for a VR game, and there was even they talked about Beat Saber on CNN and stuff. It was Beat Saber is.
I know nothing about Asgard's Wrath, so I cannot speak to that. That was from Sanzara. Cool.
Make Slide 5.
But Blood and Truth is also really good, so I'm glad to see it's on there. I've heard good things about Trover. I need to get to that. I've heard good things about the No Man's Sky VR, so it all makes sense.
But Beat Saber.
Best strategy game: Age of Wonders, Planetfall, Anno 1800, Fire Emblem Three Houses, Total War Three Kingdoms, Tropico 6, and Wargroove.
I need to play Wargroove. I feel like Wargroove is probably the best one on there, but I haven't played it. I know people like Total War a lot too.
Yeah, I like Total War. I don't have a PC that can run the new Total War games because they're insane, but a lot of people say Three Kingdoms is one of the best Total War games in a long time.
Fire Emblem will win.
Fire Emblem will win.
It will win. I'm just talking about. I'm trying to think of. I haven't played. Fire Emblem is the only one I've played, and I think it's kind of telling that Fire Emblem is the only one I've played. And I'm trying to find something else to choose.
Yeah, I'd say its biggest competition would be Total War.
Yeah,
but
I'm happy that Wargroove's on there.
The people that vote on this stuff, I think enough of them played Fire Emblem compared to the other ones. That's enough.
Yeah, it's honestly if you literally interviewed the entire world as a whole, I think Total War would win. But the games
very popular
industry, Fire Emblem would win. Yeah,
people love that they're Fire Emblem.
It's alright.
It's great. Best sports/racing game: Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. As you'll realize, this really stands out along this.
Look at all these real men and then Crash.
Dirt Rally 2.0, eFootball Pro Evolution Soccer 2020, F1 2019, FIFA 20. It's I like how it's best sports/racing game, and then everything's either a racing game or car game or soccer.
Yeah, I honestly kind of feel like this is a little bit of a busted category. The fact that FIFA is up against Crash Team Racing, I was like, I don't know if this makes a ton of sense.
I think Crash is going to win.
I mean, do you agree, Jeff, that it's kind of...
I do not disagree.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think Crash will win too, and that's again just because of the video game industry.
Yeah,
Do you realize
definitely.
how many more people play FIFA than play Crash Team Racing? It's astronomical. But yeah,
I'd say a good percentage of people who play FIFA have no idea what Crash even is.
yep. What are they like? Yeah, they knew they're like, oh, that dude that yelled on the TV in the 90s.
During most of the people who play FIFA weren't even born then. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Score and music: Cadence of Hyrule, Death Stranding, Devil May Cry 5, Kingdom Hearts 3, Sayonara, Wild Hearts.
I listened to like one song on the Sayonara Wild Hearts on Spotify, and I was like, what the hell am I doing? I need to experience this in the game.
So
How's the soundtrack for Kingdom Hearts 3? Because Kingdom Hearts traditionally has a very great soundtrack.
I love it, but it pulls towards my nostalgia as well. So I'm happy it is nominated. I don't think it will probably win.
I mean, do you think it is worse than the previous two?
No, not necessarily.
Are there a lot of reused tracks?
Yeah, there is some Dearly Beloveds, like the intro,
Right.
thing there. But
How about the ba 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 ba? No, that doesn't ring a bell. That's
I'm happy to see Cadence of Hyrule here.
Fine.
Just because the kind of game it is, it being Zelda music makes me
I honestly
happy.
feel like it should win.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't know which one will win here.
Yeah.
Though. I haven't heard it. Obviously, I haven't heard the.
Yeah,
Death Stranding
this one I have no idea. When
I could see Cadence of Hyrule actually winning the dang thing,
here's the thing,
or Sayonara Wild Hearts, but
part of me can see about any of these winning.
yeah.
Maybe for Death Stranding, I'm not sure, because I feel like I haven't heard anyone talk about the score that much for that game.
Yeah, it has a lot of licensed music, which I think should disqualify it from a soundtrack
Yeah, it's a little
game
weird.
or from a soundtrack award.
It does say and/or licensed soundtrack.
I know,
we're talking about what
but-
should. Yeah,
yeah.
I know.
It's far
But
more interesting to have original music.
Everyone likes the Devil May Cry soundtracks because of how hype it is and all that, and obviously Sayonara Wild Hearts soundtrack is the game, or a big
This
part of
is
it.
a really hard one.
Yeah.
To figure out what is going to win, because like you said, I legitimately could see any of them winning.
Yeah, so
But let's all stake our claim, or what we think is actually going to happen. I am going to go Sayonara Wild Hearts.
I think I agree.
Especially it is the game, and I think that soundtrack seems really, really good.
yeah, I'll go Sayonara.
And you
as
got a lot
well.
of buzz being on the Apple
Yeah.
music or Apple Play, whatever it's called.
And even though this shouldn't factor into it, I do think that some of the games media people will be like, hey, Sayonara Wild Hearts wasn't nominated for many things where the rest of these are. Let's vote for it. I'm not saying that's how it should be, but
Yeah, I think what might help Kingdom Hearts is because in America in particular, it's sold so well, so enough people might play it, and people do love the soundtrack. So
yeah.
just compared to these other games, Mesa for Death Stranding,
I'm just so happy that Cadence of Hyrule happened, even if I never played.
I need to play that game.
An indie game, indie studio that was given the Zelda license is just so damn cool.
Dari, let's stream the game.
I would be so bad at it. You need to play it.
Okay, next thing, role-playing game.
I need to play that.
We got Disco Elysium, Final Fantasy 14, Kingdom Hearts 3, Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and The Outer Worlds. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this. They're great, but I feel a little weird about Final Fantasy 14 and Iceborne being on here, I guess.
Yeah, I still stand by what I said last year. Monster Hunter World is not a role-playing game.
Oh, yeah, that too.
It won best role-playing game last
definitely
year, and it's not a role-playing
More of an
game.
action
It's
game.
absolutely an action game.
Yeah, that's
To
true.
me, it's not even a question, so it's always been weird to me. From everything that I've heard, what should happen is that Disco Elysium
Yeah,
takes this
same.
and runs with it. Is what should
I need to
happen.
play that
Yeah,
game.
I'm very excited
That
to play
game
it.
sounds so damn cool.
Yeah, it sounds right up
it
my
sounds
alley.
so cool.
That's on my shortish list of games I want
I
to try to
don't
get
think
in.
that actually will happen.
I think
though,
Outer
because-
Worlds is going to win because it's up for Game of the Year.
Yeah, there's a lot of people Kind of Funny and some of the other ones. There's a lot of gaming outlets that get votes in this that I don't think even know what Disco Elysium is. You know?
So here's the way I think to narrow it down to why I think Outer Worlds will probably win. Disco Elysium, too relatively new and too long for people to try to get it in.
It's also very niche.
That too. Final Fantasy 14, the people voting this do not play MMOs.
yeah.
That's just the way it is. And 14's mainly doing it for Shadowbringers or whatever it's called. Kingdom Hearts 3, that's for Kingdom Hearts fans. I don't think that's going to do it for it. And I think for Iceborne, there'll be enough people that are like, this is an expansion. What is it doing here?
Man, the more we talk about this, the more I just realized this, like, I mean, I already knew, but the whole awards part of this whole thing is just kind of busted. Like, it's basically the Oscars.
Yeah,
It's like,
totally.
You could totally, like, see, like, this is what should happen, but think about the voters, so this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, in the Oscars, it's like straight up people are running political campaigns to get their, like, thing won.
Yeah, let me make a statement that you should never place any stock in award ceremonies ever.
No.
Yeah.
It's way more fun to like kind of predict what you think the industry will pick than it is to like, oh, well, this game is better than this, because like it almost never happens.
There's a reason why we're saying, like, this should happen, but this is like, we're predicting that all these, like, industry people will actually
Now, this is what I'm about to say something, so follow with me. My heart wants Kingdom Hearts to win. But if we're looking objectively, it's probably the fourth best game on this list. I think the only one I would say, I mean, to me, just thinking about it, Outer Worlds might be the only one below it. And I would maybe put Kingdom Hearts above Iceborne because I agree. Monster Hunter isn't a role-playing game.
It's just not.
I think
it's always bugged me.
I think Disco Elysium and Final Fantasy 14 are better at what they do than Kingdom
It's
Hearts
just crazy
does.
to me because I kind of agree with you. I think that Outer Worlds will probably take this award. And I mean, to be fair, I haven't played a ton of it, and it is good. Outer Worlds is a good, fun game. But if Outer Worlds is the best role-playing game of the year, that's a weak-ass year. I mean, like, Outer Worlds is like a pretty good Fallout game. But I mean, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, here's the thing. I don't think that necessarily means it's a weak year. I think this is Outer Worlds the most popular because Disco Elysium is great. Final Fantasy 14.
Like you said, Disco Elysium, both of those, Final Fantasy 14 and Disco Elysium, both I think have so much over the Outer Worlds, but they won't win because of this thing.
Yeah.
So,
moving on.
Moving on.
Performance. Ashley Burts as Parvati Holcomb in The Outer Worlds. Courtney Hope as Jessie Faden in Control. Laura Bailey as Kate Diaz in Gears 5. Mads Mikkelsen as Cliff in Death Stranding. Matthew Peretta as Dr. Casper Darling in Control. And Norman Reedus as Sam Porter Bridges in Death Stranding.
it's gonna be Mads or Norman, right? I mean, there's just that Death Stranding has too much of an acting focus that we've never really seen in the game before.
As someone who hasn't played Control, I like the fact that the doctor guys.
I was gonna say, I've only played the prologue of Death Stranding, and Norman Reedus. I haven't seen Mads' character yet, but Norman Reedus is very good in it. But I do want Dr. Casper Darling to win because he's really great. He's one of the best parts of that game.
When is he live action?
Yes.
Okay.
He's all live action. You do not see his in-game character model.
Yeah. Control, I definitely want to try to get in before we do our gaming and stuff. And if I can, maybe for this awards thing, so I can have more opinions on what I think should win.
Does Jessie Faden talk much?
She does. So the story in Control is very minimal. It's not a very narrative-driven game as you would expect, as I expected going in. But she does talk, and I think her performance is good in it. But I think Matthew Peretta as Dr. Casper Darling does his role very well because he hits that kind of kooky, crazy scientist type, but without it becoming too cartoony and like silly. I think it's just perfect. And again, like those videos, I talked about this in my review, all those kind of extra collectibles, all the documents and stuff. Those are one of the best parts of Control, and I found those incredibly fascinating. And his videos are the best, or like some of the best of those collectibles, of those supplementary documents.
Yeah, that's rad. I think Norman Reedus will win it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think Mads is also a chance, but I honestly God, I think those are the only two that have a chance in this. And I'm not even saying they shouldn't. I mean, like the everything I've seen from both of them looks again revolutionary for a game. I mean, it looks straight up like the facial expression. I've never seen something like that in the game before.
Let's see. Best ongoing game: Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. Does anyone think it's going to be anything other than Fortnite?
No, I imagine Fortnite won this last year as well.
I can't remember.
Probably.
Might have been Overwatch.
Final Fantasy 14 could give it a run.
Again,
But I know it's an MMO, so
I feel like with Fortnite is just because, again, with the people that are voting on this, Fortnite made news whenever big events were having, especially since that 2.0 thing was pretty recent. That's going to be on people's minds when they're doing that. Yeah. Whether it's, even though like for Final Fantasy 14, that expansion is pretty much a new game.
I think there's going to be a lot of people saying like, look at how much coverage that like Chapter 2 thing had. You have to vote for that. There was like 7 million people watching that at one time or whatever. I mean, which fair enough. I mean, they have changed Fortnite so many times over and up and like. I mean, I think until someone can rival Epic with the amount of like constant changes they do in a game, I don't even play Fortnite, and I kind of feel like, yeah, they probably should win.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the resources to do that more than anyone else does, so it's kind of unfair, but it is what it is. I think Fortnite is objectively the best supported ongoing game by a pretty sizable margin.
Oh, yeah. I just kind of thought of, just reminded me, because we can if we want to bring up snubs. I want to bring up a snub for the score and music thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Final Fantasy 14. Shadowbringers. I listened to some of the soundtrack. It's amazing. It should 100% be part of this category, especially since some of these have, I feel like, 6 nominees and some of them just have 5. Final Fantasy 14 should 100% be in there. That's all I will say.
Take your word for it.
Narrative: A Plague Tale, Innocence, Control, Death Stranding, Disco Elysium, The Outer Worlds.
Man, it's hard to say.
This is a different year because last year I had played a lot of them. This year I haven't played a lot of them. But like, for everything I've heard, Disco Elysium just sounds like such a fascinating narrative.
Yeah. But it's one of those things. Just because of the timing of it all, I don't know if enough people have played it.
Yeah.
I think A Plague Tale being there is interesting, but I don't see it winning.
Death Stranding will win.
Probably. And
like I said, Control's story, its narrative is very minimal. And so I'd be surprised, and I don't feel like it deserves like best narrative.
I feel like Death Stranding will win. If not that, Outer Worlds will win.
This is where I'm getting to. Like, I think Death Stranding is going to walk away with a lot of awards. Like Norman, it might even win soundtrack. I don't know. I think it's going to win Game of the Year. I think it's going to win a lot of things. But we will get to that. But yeah, I haven't played any of those, so I can't really say. I mean, I played Outer Worlds, but not a ton of it.
Okay, multiplayer game: Apex Legends, Borderlands 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Tetris 99, Tom Clancy's The Division 2. Where the fuck is Smash?
Tetris 99, please.
Oh, win. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, Smash is up for the Game of the Year, but not the multiplayer.
Because it's a fighting game, and for some reason those are counted differently.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, then whatever. I guess it's in its genre category. This is just not what they consider as genre category.
Honestly, I don't know what will win. Maybe Tetris 99 because it's so different. A lot of people do like that.
It's a good game.
Yeah.
Yeah, people like Borderlands a lot too. This is like another one they could go anywhere.
You can go in.
Even Apex.
Okay.
Apex.
I think we can agree on this. I could see any of them potentially winning except for Division 2.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And even honestly, from what a lot of people have said, the multiplayer is like the least improved part of Call of Duty. Like, most people are like, the campaign's really good. The multiplayer is kind of what it is. You know, it's like not that it's bad, but it's when people talk about the improvements of this game, I don't feel like people talk about the multiplayer very much.
True. So I think either Apex, Borderlands, or Tetris 99. That if you had to put a gun to my head, this crowd, Borderlands 3.
I would do the same. I'd do the same.
Let's see. Mobile game: Call of Duty Mobile, Grindstone, Sayonara Wild Hearts, Sky Children of the Light. What the golf? It's going to be Sayonara Wild Hearts.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Too. Call of Duty Mobile. I didn't even know there was some new mobile Call of Duty.
Just from based on what we've heard from people, it sounds like more people will play Sayonara Wild Hearts than any of these games. It's up for more things compared to all these. So, yeah.
What the golf does look funny though.
Yeah. Independent game: Baba Is You, Disco
Hell
Elysium, Katana Zero, Outer Wilds, Untitled Goose Game. This is a strong.
This is a bloodbath.
Yeah.
Oh man.
This is one that I might have all of them completed by our Game of the Year stuff.
Bobos U doesn't have a chance, even though it's by far the best game on
No,
this
I
thing.
really don't want Untitled Goose Game to win.
I don't either.
When it's compared to the Outer Wilds and Disco Elysium.
Yeah, I 100%. And Bobos U.
And Baba's You, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a more ambitious game.
I think
Untitled Goose Game.
maybe this is a hot take, but like I've seen enough of Katana Zero. I think Untitled Goose Game is the worst game on this list by a country mile.
Yeah.
But like I don't even think it's even close to the competition with the rest of it.
Yeah, I was
But,
like,
but
Katana's.
it'll get more votes than most of these.
Oh, absolutely.
I think Untitled Goose Game has a chance of winning, which
I
is
think
kind
it
of
does,
dumb.
too.
It's kind of
I'll
dumb.
be kind of pissed.
I'll be kind of pissed too.
Katana Zero is a fantastic game, but as far as what I do think it should be under the rest of them, other than
I
Untitled
think
Goose
this
Game.
is one of those things. I think this is one of those things that Outer Wilds kind of got snubbed with the Game of the Year. So I think
I think
it'll
Outer
win
Wilds
this.
is going to win this.
I think it's going to win this.
the dark horse is Disco Elysium because
Yeah.
I think at the end of the year, out of this list, Outer Wilds and Disco Elysium are going to be on a lot of Game of the Year lists.
Yeah, I'm excited to play both of them.
I'm just so glad Bobos U is on here. Bobos U is like one of the most interesting and innovative games I've ever played. Like it's
Definitely.
so simple, but God, it's so good. Like I love Bobos U so much. Bobos U is probably like my top 3 games of this year. Maybe my top 2. Maybe my top 1. I don't
There you
know.
go.
I'll have to figure it out.
Out of all 4 games you played,
Yeah. Mhm.
games for impact: Concrete Genie, Grease, Kind Words, Life is Strange 2, Sea of Solitude. Life is Strange 2 isn't even completely out.
It will probably win.
Maybe, yeah. Probably.
It's probably the
Maybe.
one known the most. I don't even really know what the impact of Gris is. I didn't play it. But.
It's artsy.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about what about
Well, I mean, it could have had a twist like The Missing we don't know about.
Yeah.
True.
Like this is. I'm not saying like it shouldn't be on there. I just haven't played the game, so I don't really know. But
Wait, did The Missing win this category last year?
No.
Oh.
I think it was Florence.
but Florence is super good. though.
Yeah.
Florence is super good. But
Um,
yeah, like,
Yeah. I think Life is Strange 2 will win just from the thought of it's technically, I think it's been out longer than most, other than Greece, of course. And
was Sea of
people know
Solitude
it.
good? I kind of never heard
I
anyone
I've
talk
heard
about it.
mixed
I
things
think it
about it.
mixed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't heard much about Concrete Genie either, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't think. I think you're right. Life is Strange 2, if nothing else, just because of eyes.
Game direction: Control, Death Stranding, Resident Evil 2, Sekiro, Outer Wilds. It's going to be Death Stranding.
It's gonna be Death Stranding.
What I'm about to say is I'm not saying it's good or it's not great or anything, but I feel like what will put Death Stranding over the edge is Kojima's name.
Yeah, I was about to say this is basically giving Kojima an award, so they're
Yeah,
gonna
I
do
mean-
that. I mean, that's when you talk about
I
direction.
mean, people can argue
they're
day
gonna
and
do
night
that.
about what's good or bad in Death Stranding, but I think the game direction is definitely like where it plants its flag the most as being different, innovative, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that different and innovative doesn't mean good, but I do think. I mean, it's where it plants
That's-
its flag for better or
clearly
worse.
by the dialogue, that's a matter of opinion.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
Outer Wilds also seems like a good.
I'll say
contender.
Dark Horse, Outer Wilds.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think basically because this game direction is basically awarding the people making the game, it's gonna be Death Stranding. I mean, they're kind of. I don't know. There is a lot of like people like to like build up Kojima any chance they can. So I think that's definitely. I see no way that that's not happening. But
Yeah. Fresh indie game. Pretty much new indie studios. Zaum for Disco Elysium. Nomada Studio for Greece. Dead Toast Entertainment for My Friend Pedro. Mobius Digital for Outer Worlds. Megacrit for
Outer Wilds.
Outer Wilds. I'm sorry, forgive me. Megacrit for Slay the Spire. And House for Untitled Goose Game. I feel like what should win is either Zaum or Mobius Digital, but it will probably be House.
Yeah.
Or maybe Slay the Spire also, because I've heard nothing but fantastic things about that game.
I've never even heard of that game.
It's very popular on PC.
Yeah.
I think it's only on PC. Is it?
I think I heard something about it maybe coming to consoles. Maybe on Switch. I think I might still Slay the Spire on Game Pass, Darby. for PC. But my friend Pedro, I've heard decent things about it, so I don't expect that to win. And kind of agrees as well. I feel like,
I didn't light the world on fire. I mean, I think it's either Outer Wilds or House. I mean, like Mobius Digital or House are the only ones that can win, and I think it will be House. Even though I also think that just again comparing a Tile Goose game to what Outer Wilds is doing is just night and day.
I legitimately think if Disco Elysium came out in the first half of the year, we would feel more confident just giving the nod to those for more of the categories.
Yep. Again, it is the Oscars. Yeah. Because the Oscars, it also matters a whole lot when your game...
Best fighting game. Dead or Alive 6, Jump Force, Mortal Kombat 11, Samurai Showdown, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Why the fuck is Jump Force here? I say this as a fan. Why is it Power Rangers here, damn it?
You put a straight up bad game on your fighting game list.
If you're going to at least try to fill up the slots, please put in a good game. Put Power Rangers.
Put Power Rangers. You put other small studios on here,
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's a thing. I doubt too many people who are voting for this played Power Rangers. It's much of a crime as it is.
No, but like Jump Force is not going to win either.
Jump Force should even have been nominated. They should have just had less things, but Smash will win.
Oh, yeah, I think it'll be Smash.
Unless Smash wins Game of the Year.
Could win both, but yeah.
Because I don't think typically the Game of the Year does not win the genre awards usually.
I don't know if it's like a usually thing. I think it's sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I honestly don't get why people feel like, we're voting for Game of the Year, so let's don't vote for it. It's like, if it's the big Game of the Year, it's the best.
Well, certainly, yeah. But I think,
I feel like I agree with you that if that happened, I feel like in this case, it is going to be Smash.
I'm pretty sure God of War last year won both. I'm pretty sure, but
yeah,
and then,
I think Smash is too big compared to the rest.
Obviously,
of these.
We're just talking about the possibilities. It's Smash, Samurai Showdown, Mortal Kombat 11.
But even then, I would take out Samurai Showdown in that conversation as far as having a chance to win.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% number 3 in there.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if we're talking about the most popular, and it's obviously just those two. It's just Smash and Mortal Kombat 11. But obviously, like, Samurai Showdown is a super good game.
Oh,
yeah. But I do think Smash will win.
Yeah. Family game, a.k.a. the Nintendo category.
Jeez, look at this.
Yeah. Luigi's Mansion 3. Dear Lord, I'm excited to play that game. Ring Fit Adventure, Super Mario Maker 2, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Yoshi's Crafted World. This family game category is so dumb. Like, it's literally just anything that's colorful.
Yeah.
And made for kids.
Yeah, made by Nintendo.
Pretty much. I mean, I think that a couple times I've had other things in there, but a lot of times it is pretty much just Nintendo. And I think Smash is going to win this, even though it's kind of...
for the best game appropriate for family play, irrespective of genre or platform. Like, yeah, it was kind of a dumb category.
Yeah. I think Smash is going to win.
Yeah,
most likely.
Maybe Dark Horse Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yeah.
Just because people might like what you were just saying about Smash potentially not winning fighting game for that. I feel like they may we're voting Smash for these two things. And people love the Luigi's Mansion thing.
But it is kind of dumb. Like you said, if this game is the best game or whatever, then it's also going to be the best in whatever its respective categories you put it into. I mean, I guess that's not always true. There's like games for impact. A game could be really good, but it's like message or whatever.
Score
it's not like our score and that kind of thing. But as far as the family game, almost just feels like a category. But unless they just take it to like playing with your friends and then like I don't know.
I've seen people play Smash. Not appropriate for families.
Nope.
Esports team. Astralis for CSGO, G2 Esports for League of Legends, OG for Dota 2, San Francisco Shock for Overwatch League, Team Liquid for CSGO, and that's it. I have no idea who's going to win.
San Francisco Shock. Obviously, Overwatch League is literally that is the only team I know of these, but I enjoyed watching them, and
that's one of those things where
I feel like San Francisco Shock will win because like their run, the fact that they lost in the first round to Atlanta in the championship, so they had to do a completely lower bracket run, not lose a single game, and then get to the finals and 4-0 Vancouver. Like, it was a crazy run that is like the equivalent of like a 6 seed winning the Super Bowl in the NFL. It's like not something that happens very often, so it was pretty exciting.
Counterpoint to that, you only know that because you follow Overwatch League.
Oh, I know. I mean, I'm not saying anything, but I also think that, again, the people voting on this are not esports people by any stretch whatsoever. It's kind of, this is just like throwing a bone to them. Like most of the people voting for this are just like me and don't know any of these things. Yeah. I feel like Overwatch is the one that like a little bit goes over into this category more. But again, like I said, that's the only one I know, so I am definitely kind of biased in there.
Best esports player, Kyle Bugga, Gearsdorf, Sentinels for Fortnite, Lee Faker saying, I don't know how to pronounce that. SK Telecom from League of Legends, Luka Perkovic, G2 Esports, League of Legends, Olesander Simple Kostalev, Natives Vincier, CSGO, Jay Sinatra Juan, San Francisco Shock, Overwatch.
I think it'll be the Buka guy because he was 13 years old and won like $15 million playing Overwatch.
That did make news.
Crazy. Yeah. And like it was talked about in like the New York Times and stuff. So I think Sinatra did win the Overwatch League and the World Cup. So that was kind of cool doing the two-peat. But I do think it'll be the Buga.
Esports host, dear Lord, that first name.
Oh, geez.
Oh, no, it's EEFJE.
Okay, I'm just going to skip. I'm sorry.
Sorry to you.
Alex Machine Richardson, Paul Redeye Challoner, Alex Golden Boy Mendez, Juan Candice Yushong.
I mean, I know, again, he's the only one I know, but come on, Golden Boy is like every week he's hosting something new. It's like, I don't know when that guy sleeps. you gotta give it to him. Mm-hmm. He does WWE, Fortnite, Overwatch, everything.
Esports Game of the Year, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Dota 2, Fortnite, League of Legends, Overwatch. I have no idea will win this. Part of me thinks cynically Fortnite might win, but at the same time, I don't know if it's usually seen as an esports game. I know that's kind of growing, but it's not like what people know it for.
I feel like the Overwatch League might help Overwatch just because it is like a dedicated league that is in its second year and doing all this. Whereas Fortnite and the other ones are still, I mean, League also has a similar thing, but you know.
And Overwatch just feels like a pet favorite of the Game Awards, considering its past track record.
Yeah, they won Game of the Year.
Won the whole damn thing.
Esports event, 2019 Overwatch League Grand Finals, EVO 2019, Fortnite World Cup, IEM Katowice 2019, League of Legends World Championship 2019, and the International 2019. Maybe EVO, just because that's kind of more of a general thing and not put in one game. I don't know.
Obviously, I hope Overwatch, but
oh god, we're still going with esports.
Oh no.
Esports coach Eric Adrian Hogue, Nuri Kane Jang. I'm not even saying the name for the team.
We can skip that. I legitimately don't know any of these. There's no Overwatch. Let's just skip.
Content Creator of the Year. Courage, a.k.a. Jack Dunlap. Dr. Lupo, a.k.a. Benjamin Lupo. Ewok, a.k.a. Soleil Wheeler. Griff. I'm going to name him Greg. I'm going to call him Greg. A.k.a. David Martinez. And Shroud, a.k.a. Michael Gritziak. I think Shroud's going to remember because I just heard his name more.
I mean, that's mostly because like Alyx watches him. I think he's probably not as big as some of these. I don't know, but go Shroud. I mean, Shroud's
I also heard Dr. Lupo a good bit, so I don't know.
Shroud's funny.
All I know is that whoever wins is going to turn out to be a shithead.
Let's move past this one.
Community support?
Yeah.
Obviously, Final Fantasy 14. Audio design. Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Control. Death Stranding. Gears 5. Resident Evil 2. Sekiro. Shadows. Die Twice.
Resident Evil 2 would be a good pick. I mean, considering, how the sound of the zombies tapping on the glass and the reloading of the guns and hearing Mr. X stomp around you. It has very good audio design. I feel like Resident Evil 2 might get snubbed on a lot of these awards.
I feel like it's probably going to be Death Stranding.
Yeah, I can't comment on Death Stranding.
I have no reason to think Death Stranding will win, but I feel like it's going to win.
Control also had a really good audio design though. Just when you're walking around and pretty much in the game, this extra dimensional entity called the Hiss kind of took over the bureau, and so there's all these floating bodies, and you're walking around, they're like constantly like murmuring, and when the sound of using the telekinesis and throwing things is really phenomenal. You can feel like the weight and the explosions. Control has really good, when I think about it, Control has really good audio design.
Cool.
Still think
I do worry.
Death Stranding, if not Resident Evil, I think is the second most chances.
I do worry that RE2 might be the horizon of this year, like a super good game that wins nothing.
Yeah, and it came out in January, so it's in the back of a lot of people's minds.
But we also said that like Smash is probably going to win awards, even though it came out last year.
Well, the day after the game.
Well, I mean, Smash has also been putting out new characters. It's been continuously in like the news and in conversation. Whereas Resident Evil 2 came, had its moment, and then months went by, and
I feel like what helps Resident Evil 2 potentially is the fact that, even though it did come out in January, usually when I hear people talk about Game of the Year, just general stuff, Resident Evil 2 is always being name dropped.
Yeah.
So, but like Darby said, I do fear it could be the horizon of this year.
Yep. I think Death Stranding will also win. I just kind of think Death Stranding is going to win almost every category.
Art direction: Control, Death Stranding, Grease, Sayonara Wild Hearts, Sekiro, The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Let's go, baby. So here's the thing. I feel like Death Stranding might win this. I don't think it should. Because it's more realistic and doesn't have much, as far as I can tell, like an art direction.
See, I extremely disagree. I think art direction is messy because it's like comparing like an animated film to maybe like a live action movie.
Right.
You can have look at like a Wes Anderson film, like the set design, the color palette is just as impressive, even if it doesn't have like a interesting art style. Control, I think, is a very strong contender because it captures that feeling of like being in a this brutalist architecture building, the red and then the black kind of color along with the white interspersed with it. Just the design, the overall design of it is very striking and makes a striking impact when you're playing that game. Death Stranding, again, I haven't played it too much, so I can't really comment, but definitely the design, the whole sci-fi design, I think is very different. Like I haven't really seen a sci-fi game that looks exactly like Death Stranding before. It's not like a style that you can point to exactly. So I think, yes, those are realistic games. They don't have like an obvious animated art style, but I think they're both very visually interesting.
I was thinking for Death Stranding, just for the most part, not necessarily that realistic graphic means it should automatically be disqualified. That's not what I meant. It's just more like, based on what I've seen, it's even, there are weird side things going on, but I kind of disagree. Just based on what I've seen, the sci-fi things don't look that inherently interesting or unique a lot of the times, maybe except for the little baby pod. And then you just have kind of sludge people that, aren't inherently interesting design-wise.
I definitely kind of fall more on Jeff's. I think there are elements to Death Stranding's design that are very new and different, but also like when you're in the world, this like I'm consistently, every time I see people walking around the world, it's like, this looks like Horizon Zero Dawn without all the interesting visual elements that made Horizon Zero Dawn like stick out to me, because it's in that same engine. A lot of times, like, this just looks like you took one grassy and rocky patch of Horizon Zero Dawn and made a whole map out of it.
Yeah, I think just comparing it to the rest of these is, even just when I've seen Control, I agree with you with Control, is Death Stranding, what helps it is technological stuff, where these other games look great despite potential limitations. Death Stranding has more money on it, and that's part of the reason it looks as pretty as it does. But like, Grease is probably, and Sayonara Wild Hearts are like by far the two lowest budget, but they look beautiful because of their art direction.
Yeah, but I mean, Sayonara Wild Hearts is again, I don't know what's going to win this. Probably Death Stranding. But I think Control is also a very good contender. Sayonara Wild Hearts, it is a pretty looking game, but there's nothing, I don't really see anything special about its art style.
I mean, honestly, me, if you like, again, because I haven't played most of these games, but just from seeing them, if you ask what I would vote for, it would be Grease. because like the way that watercolor animation moves with the gameplay, like I've never really seen something like that. That's super unique. Like you see a lot of like indie games with like really cool art styles, but like the fact that it straight up looks like a watercolor painting, even when you're interacting with the world and like just simply running and like jumping and stuff, it doesn't really even look like a game at times. Like it's beautiful, and it's like a very, very, like I don't know, just the way that it animates is really, really nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna back up for a second. I think Sekiro, that's a game that's gonna get snubbed. I think a lot.
Yeah, you 100% correct. I think there were a lot of games snubbed because again, a lot of the ones we're saying are gonna win this. We keep on going to Death Stranding. We think it's gonna win this, and then the ones we're not saying, we're saying, oh, man, might be Control or Resident Evil potentially.
Right.
But yeah, I think Sekiro might be even more so than Resident Evil, like you said, Darby. I think Sekiro might even be more the horizon of this.
Yeah, I guess, and I guess like a final thing about Control or Death Stranding for like art direction, I think what I personally like about those two games and how they look is that Control is very drab and Death Stranding is very ugly. And those are two elements that I think can be visually interesting in an unconventional way.
Yeah. I'm in agreement that sometimes like like art direction shouldn't mean it's beautiful and pretty. Like Blade Runner, it's not pretty. Like that world is not a pretty world. It's a very like it's an ugly and kind of like violent and brutal world. But like I think the art design of Blade Runner is like some of the best in all of movies and stuff like that. Like
Control
they really Control did their homework. I mean, when like you said, like the brutalist architecture, just the buildings and just you walking through hallways and that thing, it's like unsettling. It's the kind of like, I don't know. It's just,
and how like timeless it kind of feels, because the game is set in 2019, but like there's like old technology like recorders next to like these
like 1984-esque
these copper pipes from like the 40s, and it's a very visually distinct game.
Yeah,
for sure.
Action adventure game: Borderlands 3, Control, Death Stranding, Resident Evil 2, The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, and Sekiro: Shadow Die Twice. I actually think Sekiro might has a good shot at this one.
Yeah,
because this is going to be one time where I say I don't think this might actually be Death Stranding, because if you read the description, it says for best action adventure puzzling, combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. I haven't seen anyone say anything really good about Death Stranding's combat.
Yeah,
which I think is what people will.
I just talked about how RE2 might not win anything. I actually think RE2 wins this.
Yeah, so
I can see that. I think this one's up between Sekiro and Resident Evil.
I would agree,
and I think RE2 has the more mass appeal with this audience. I think,
but both of those. Their gameplays really spoke to me. RE2 being a great modern update to survival horror, and Sekiro: Shadow Die Twice has some of the best swordplay I've ever played in a video game.
Yeah,
it is amazing.
But I think RE2, just with the combat, the atmosphere, and the puzzles, like kind of, I don't know. I just feel like it's and it's not going to win Game of the Year. I do think it might win this. But I could also.
I'd be happy with either of those.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much between those two. Action game: Apex Legends, Astral Chain, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Devil May Cry 5, Gears 5, Metro Exodus. Probably Devil May Cry.
It should be.
Get that off my screen.
It should be Devil May Cry.
I think it's that or Apex.
Yeah, it's not Astral Chain.
No, even though the action is the best part of that game, and it's
I don't think enough people played it.
Not enough people played it.
Well, I don't know. Even from the people who did play it, it seems like a lot of people like it a lot, but I don't think it's winning action game.
No, it's not Platinum's best game either. For a lot of people.
Certainly not Metro Exodus. I don't know. A lot of people like that game. It's not going to win, but I am in the minority.
But for Devil May Cry 5, I feel like this is the best chance to win a bigger award, because I've seen so many people being like, it was the biggest snuff for the game of the year.
Yeah,
I agree.
And just from that demo I played, like that game feels so good to play.
I need to play that, Jeff.
It's on my Xbox, I believe. So
yeah, I'm in agreement.
And it's one of those legacy action series, anyways. It feels right.
Yeah,
I mean, kind of so is Gears, but I think DMC will take that. Yeah.
I feel like more people had good things to say about Devil May Cry, especially combat and stuff, than Gears.
Sorry this podcast has been so long, but I do think it's been a good one. Game of the year. The
Game of the year, the Gona. We got
the big kahuna.
We got Control. We got Death Stranding. We got Resident Evil. We got Sekiro Shadow Die Twice. We got Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And we got The Outer World. I saw something Sakurai posted. He was confused why Smash was up for these awards.
Because it came out last year.
Yeah.
What?
Came out the day after the awards.
Okay.
Which is kind of a shame for timing wise for Pokemon and Star Wars, just for something, because they made the deadline to be on this.
But they were so close to it.
They're so close where people weren't able to play them. So they're not going to be in any of these awards, which is a shame.
Which, I mean, to be fair, I think the only game that Jedi Fallen Order could have maybe gotten over was The Outer Worlds. But the rest of these,
I'm not even talking about Game of the Year. I'm just saying
for any
categories in general. Pokemon would at least be up for Family Game, I would think.
I would think so.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Probably get an RPG nod, I'd imagine. Well, I guess it depends on what else comes out in 2020.
Even if it was close to the cutoff, that's kind of absurd.
Yeah.
That Pokemon was not up for Family Game.
Yeah. I want to put it for best RPG. I don't think anyone put it up for the best RPG. Well, like, it would have been it's eligible for this year.
Oh, okay.
Like, it made the deadline. The 15th, I think, was the actual deadline. That's when Star Wars came out. But because no one was able to get them early enough to play them, no one actually not enough people put them up for the nominee list. But also, so they're being snubbed altogether.
That sucks.
It's almost like this should take place in January when the year is over, so you don't have Smash potentially winning Game of the Year in a year it didn't come out. It's just so stupid. But
so yeah, out of all these, I want Smash to win.
Obviously,
I think Smash will win. I don't know if I would. I think it will win.
Nice.
I don't know if I would pick it for Game of the Year, but
yeah, I mean it's not as big of a thing for you, obviously.
Right.
It's like me and Jeff.
But
this is the culmination of our entire childhood.
I know it's a great game. It's to most people, the best Smash game, in the way that it's been introducing its DLC characters and has been relevant in the conversation in 2019. I think it absolutely.
I think it's a testament that it's up for Game of the Year exactly the year after it came out.
But it's
dumb, but
it is a weird thing, and like me and Jeff are definitely guilty of it too. A lot of times when I talk about my favorite games of whatever time, I do often forget about Smash or put it into it because I put it in a different category. It just feels so different. It's like this like multiplayer party game, and the fact that it's like there are different Smashes, but like also Smash Ultimate is kind of a new game, but also kind of the culmination of every game that came before it. So it's weird to like think of Smash as its own thing, and like I do wonder if sites will have enough of that too, like a combination of the fact that it came out last year and just that Smash Ultimate is just weird as far as considering it a new game, because it is, but it's not, but it is. You know? So I do think Smash has a decent chance. Maybe gun to my head, I still say Smash wins, but
my gut tells me Death Stranding.
I'd still think Death Stranding. I think gun to my head, I think Death Stranding wins it.
I think for Death Stranding, and I think this was, I don't know if this was part of the reason they gave it to people so early, but they got it like a month before the release date.
Yeah, it's Oscars. It's like giving people Oscar screens.
So people had plenty of time to play it, and while it's probably the most mixed as far as like people who played it liking it / hating it type thing on here potentially. I feel like it's just reading more and more reviews. There are enough people that absolutely love it, especially since I don't think we've kind of talked about this a little bit, that there aren't that many games this year that people are talking like unanimous like Game of the Year stuff.
Right, like
Death Stranding is in some ways, despite it being a love it or hate it type thing, there are not people that love it to where it's kind of the main one in the conversation. The next closest by far next closest is Resident Evil 2.
Yeah,
I think there's a giant drop.
This type of thing, like when I compared last year, Red Dead Redemption would have won if God of War wasn't there.
Yeah,
like, it's a super, super divisive game, a lot like Death Stranding. Like a lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it, but it would have won without God of War. I don't think there's a God of War to take Death Stranding down this year. I mean, like, people do universally love RE2, but the talk on RE2 versus the talk on God of War is kind of night and day as far as just quantity and just people last year were talking about God of War being like one of the best games of the decade, best game of all time. There was a lot of that. I'm not even saying I agree with that. Well, I'm just saying the industry, that was the discussion of God of War. I don't think people are having that level of discussion for RE2. Yeah, I'm just trying to get in the minds of the voting or whatever.
That's what we're doing this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, the way,
I'm not even saying that's me.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, the way I see it is that I think Smash Bros is that God of War type title compared to Death Stranding. It's definitely those two versus each other. But I think just looking at Red Dead Redemption 2, I think looking at Red Dead Redemption 2 versus God of War is a much more conventional game. Yeah, still a very good game. But, in 10 years, I don't see God of War being as maybe impactful as maybe Red Dead Redemption 2 will be in 10 years.
I hope, but Red Dead Redemption 2 is already like dropping off in sales.
Add on to your thing.
I mean, sales don't matter, but the way it inoculated people to maybe enjoying a slower type game, I think that is very important.
Yeah.
And
no, you go ahead. You finish your thought.
Okay, so my thought was that Red Dead Redemption 2 was divisive for that slowness and all those mechanics. Death Stranding is even more divisive over those very similar issues. And I think that the Game Awards, one with Keighley's weird association with Death Stranding, will also deter them from wanting to, pick Death Stranding as Game of the Year. And yeah, I don't see. I think they'll probably want to go with a more conventional, quote, safer pick than Death Stranding. I don't see Game Awards or award ceremonies in general as being the place to have controversial, planting your flag in the ground on a hill.
But I almost even forums. Like maybe I'm just looking at the wrong places, or maybe I'm just thinking differently on it. But like I feel like in the critic space, I saw more divisiveness with Red Dead Redemption than Death Stranding. Like, I feel like with Red Dead Redemption, almost every like outlet I went to at least had one or two people that just absolutely hated it. At Death Stranding, I feel like there's a lot of people who are unsure how they feel about it, but like, I don't know. I feel like at least where I've looked, the downright I hate this game is a lot less than.
Well, to go on to what you said, the whole while people aren't necessarily saying they hate Death Stranding, but like you said, there are people who are saying, I don't know how to feel about Death Stranding, or I kind of feel, but that's not the feeling of this is a great game. So, but it might be enough for it to put it.
I also think it's going to get points for being different. There's going to be a lot of people that's like, it's unique and everything. So
yeah, but I don't think uniqueness to the point of maybe isolating a lot or turning a lot of people off will work in its benefit. In the same way that like a lot of people can't fucking stand Red Dead Redemption 2 for how slow it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I know like Giant Bomb, like they all universally hate Death Stranding.
They are definitely like one of the outliers. And what I was talking about, when I look at most people, like a lot of people generally liked it. Giant Bomb is definitely one of the ones that did.
And I know it.
It's not that there's not dissent.
Right. And I know at GameSpot too, like the person who wrote the review for that, like I think they gave it like a 9. But I know a lot of the people at that staff also disliked the game.
If you look at IGN, they had the most negative review, and then I've saw other IGN people also being like, "Yeah, I didn't care for this game, so I didn't really like it, so I hated it."
Yeah,
and
Death Stranding was also a weird. It was so, but But this is the type of thing that like I know we're going along in this, but whatever. This is an interesting discussion, but
plus we may not have a podcast next week.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. Everyone.
Extra long one for you.
Which I'm sorry for you, but there was a lot. I feel like this is something that makes me feel like it might go Death Stranding despite all this. There were so many reviews that I read for Death Stranding where I'm reading it and I'm like, okay, this sounds like a 7, maybe even a 6.5 is the way this review is reading. Like it's seeming like kind of positive, but like a lot not. And I get to the number 9, 8.5.
Yeah.
9.5. I'm like, the fuck? Like that makes so I feel like a lot of people like want to love this game or like want to give it like even though they have all these problems, they have all these dissenting things, they still love the game for being unique and going like, and maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but like there was a lot of reviews that like read negative, scored high, and I feel like that's kind of a microcosm of what people are gonna think about Death Stranding. They're like, there's going to be some people that like, I didn't enjoy playing this game, but it was like unique. It did something that games have never done.
And Kojima's story. The story of Kojima getting here, I'm sure it's going to give it some points. Just outside the game.
And Keely's going to stuff the ballot box.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I cannot speak to how I feel about Death Stranding, but the way that I think it would be, I would be really surprised if it won Game of the Year. But if it did, I'd be fascinated. I think that'd be interesting. But I'd be very surprised.
Whole discussion of Death Stranding has been very interesting. Like, I almost wish that I could play it just so that I could actually like talk about it with confidence instead of just talking about how I think I would do it.
Yeah, same.
But I also don't want to spend money on something that I think I would hate and put 60 hours into something I think I would hate. That's the unfortunate thing. I really want to be able to speak about, because I kind of feel like an asshole just like shitting on it when I haven't played it. But like I've seen enough to think I think I would loathe that game.
Well, we got hours of gameplay up that we watched pre-release. I think that gives us a right to at least say something based on what we've seen at least. We obviously can't say about the whole story or anything, but we see about gameplay. But to go on, like you were saying about Smash against Death Stranding, if Smash came out this year, I would agree with you more about that. I think the problem is they're going to be a non-insignificant amount of people who are like, well, Smash came out last year, so nah. When voting for this,
I kind of do think I think it's a 50-50 shot with Smash and Death Stranding. Yeah. I do think those are the two.
Or because, like we said, we don't feel like there is a game that people are like heads or tail away. You know, this is like a game the game that defines as your whatever, kind of like God of War and Breath of the Wild year before.
By the way,
Smash might do it.
It is interesting. There was very little doubt last year when they're like, and the Game Award is, we're like, God of War. And God of War is like, okay, yeah, God of War. This year, it's like, I'm going to be a little like, what's going to be like?
Yeah, and that's exciting. I like that.
Yeah, and the thing, the way the categories are last year, because there was obviously Red Dead versus God of War, and there was no question about it. And they were pretty much all in the same categories that we were able to kind of tell, kind of based on who was winning those, maybe who would be winning Game of the Year. Because at first it was Red Dead taking all the awards pretty much. We're like, oh, Red Dead might have this. Then it kept doing God of War for all the mates was like, so God of War now. This one, what's interesting is, we're talking about Death Stranding and Smash being the two front runners, and who knows, we might be surprised. I think Resident Evil 2 has a shot at it.
It has a shot, yeah.
But Smash is in none of the other same categories as any of the other games.
Yeah.
So the other categories will mean nothing when coming to Game of the Year thing. Well, that part is interesting. Oh, yeah. I also want to mention another snub. Why isn't Smash in soundtrack? What is this garbage?
That's another like weird, almost cop out thing, because
who cares? It's a collection.
Well, there's not very many like original Smash songs, and like I wouldn't, if we were just considering those, and I'd say
but it has a whole bunch of remixes.
Well, I mean the Grammys are stupid. Like you wouldn't want to nominate like a greatest hits album for a Grammy.
Yeah.
I mean, if Death Stranding can be in there with its licensed music, Smash can be in there because it takes stuff from the characters that are in there.
Yeah, it's taking from a bunch of other games, but it's like that's almost like I want to agree with you it should be in there, but I also think it's insanely uninteresting for it to be in there, because of course it'll win.
As it should.
I mean, but I'm just saying, like, it's a weird thing.
If it has the best soundtrack, it has the best soundtrack.
It's a weird thing to compare the score for this game against the entire history of Nintendo. That's what it feels like.
Then people need to do better. Get more history.
I don't know. Like, I kind of selfishly, like, I'm kind of glad it's not, because it just makes the discourse, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just kind of breaks it and everything down.
Well, watch like the Outer Worlds win Game of the Year. I could honestly kind of see that. I know
it's insane.
I know it's insane, but like
it's a good game, but it's not that. It's not that good.
I feel like with Outer Worlds and even in Control as well, it's like a lot of people do really like these games, but I'm not seeing the people saying this is game of the year.
Right.
I think those two games in particular are in there because this is an overall kind of weaker year as far as the top of the thing. Because if we went through that list, there were a lot of amazing games in there, and we could argue, based on the discourse I've seen just throughout the year, the wrong Outer W was in the Game of the Year category.
The what?
The wrong Outer W.
Oh, yeah. The Outer Wilds.
Yeah.
Or Outer Wilds.
Based on what I've heard, but Outer
100%.
Worlds has the bigger name behind it, and that's kind of...
That's kind of a problem with this whole awards show.
I 100% expected Outer Wilds to be the Celeste of this year, being the indie game that everyone loved. And
Jeff, remember when me and you were saying that Andrew Renee was an idiot for saying that Outer Worlds would be the one in over Outer Wilds? We were like, what are you talking about? That's silly. Here we are. She was right.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's definitely a AAA focused on all of this.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, Obsidian versus Bethesda, like the true Fallout studio, that kind of narrative not being obviously not being obvious, but kind of playing in somewhere into this. I could see that happening.
I hope not.
I just want to say I love that we're, under the banner for Game of the Year, and Palutena is just chilling right there, as she should be. All hail the goddess.
Kid Icarus got Game of the Year. They sneaked in there.
Yes! Uprising.
Okay. This is, I think, officially our longest podcast of all time. So really quick, what do you think it's going to be?
I'm going to go with Smash. I'm going with my feels.
I'll go Smash.
I'll go Death Stranding.
Yeah. I guess Jacob kind of won me over. I think Smash has the more universal appeal.
I think there's a very good chance too, but I also...
Yeah, I think if Smash launched last year and there was no DLC characters, I think it would be kind of a different argument.
I feel like it wouldn't be in if it didn't have the DLC.
Yeah, but the DLC I think makes it.
So we don't have to talk about this too long, but I do want to go just real quick.
We don't even 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Oh damn. Okay, whatever. Announcements that are already announced going to be there: Gears Tactics, Half-Life Alyx, and the reveal of Wolfeye Studios from the Arcane founders. New game are going to be revealed, and musical guest Green Day.
Cool stuff. All right, twitch.tv/nerds@large-gaming. You can tune in and watch us react to the Game Awards live, and you can also, sometime before then, we'll do our prediction spectacular. Thank you guys so much. I'm so sorry. Goodbye.
Eat some motherfucking turkey.
Ha!